Chapter 1304. Yin Shishir peeked at him through the gaps between her fingers and covered her face in embarrassment. She felt a little embarrassing. Muyaja didn't know whether to laugh or cry at first. Then, he carried her back to the bedroom and carefully placed her on the bed. Concerned about the wounds on her body that hadn't healed yet, his movements were very careful, as if he was treating a precious and fragile object. In the next second, he took off her clothes. Yin Shishir immediately reached out to stop him. He said in a low voice, "Don't move." She really didn't dare to move. Until he took off her outerwear, leaving only her cute and sexy underwear. Then, his tall body pressed down on her. He placed it on her body, but deliberately lightened the weight. Even so, Yin Shishir still pushed him away in embarrassment. Ugh! Muyaja, you're so heavy. A height of 188 meters and a weight of more than 70 kilograms was a very heavy weight to her. Muyaja smiled mischievously. Then, he reached out and hugged her. With a flip of his body, he switched positions with her and helped her sit on top of him. With this, Yin Shishir sat on top of him in a seductive position. Yin Shishir smiled sweetly. With a slight twist of her body, the straps on her bright and beautiful body slid down from her shoulders. When her clothes were half removed, that beautiful scene came into his view. Muyaja reached out and just happened to be able to grasp that pair of plump jade bunnies. Yin Shishir sensitively reached out and grabbed his hand. Then, he held her hand in reverse and guided it to a certain spot. The moment her fingertips touched something hot, she was shocked and immediately retracted her hand. Why? Who was the one who said that she wanted to try it? He grabbed her hand again and smiled mischievously. His deep eyes revealed some hidden meaning. You weren't at your best just now. Now, try it again. How does it feel? Those words really made one's heart skip a beat. She blushed at his teasing. She pursed her lips in shyness as her cheeks blushed a few shades of pink. It was just a teasing remark. Did he actually take it seriously? She was only joking, that's why she said that. No matter how bold she was, she wouldn't dare to play with fire on him. Hey, you're not allowed to go overboard. She mumbled softly as a warning to him. However, the man didn't think much of it and looked at her leisurely like an ancient overlord. He asked her casually, "Who's the one who's going overboard?" "It's you." She slapped his hand away and chuckled. "Let go of me." But her face. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze, and snorted in displeasure. "You're the one who provoked me first. I didn't want to touch you during this period of time, but now, you're in the wrong. Now that you're the one who started it, shouldn't you be responsible for extinguishing it?" Yin Shishir pouted disapprovingly and raised her eyebrows. It's more like I'm the one who's going to destroy you." "Destroy me?" This woman. She's got guts. She actually wanted to destroy him? Muyaja curled his lips and kissed her perky butt. He kneaded it gently. This feeling was just right, but it made his brows relax slightly. He wanted to see who would be the one to destroy who. Sure, why don't you give it a try? Chapter 1305. Yin Shishir reached out to grab his careless hand. With a charming smile on her face, she looked like a seductive vixen. What greeted his eyes was a seductive scene. "All right, stop fooling around. Sleep with me, okay?" She leaned over and laid on his body, hugging his shoulders and acting coquettishly. She was a little tired and wanted to rest. Unfortunately, his restless hands continued to roam all over her body, igniting a fire. It caused her body to react a little. Yin Shishir became increasingly frustrated and couldn't help pinching his face. Muyaja took a step further and asked, "How are we going to sleep?" "Hey!" Yin Shishir glared at him and rebuked, "Muyaja, can you be more serious?" However, the man hooked his arm around her jade-like neck and rubbed his lips against her ear. "Am I not serious enough? How do you want me to be serious, then? Tell me. Sleep with me obediently." Yin Shishir pressed his restless hand down and said, "Today." I really can't. The man raised a brow meaningfully as if he was deliberately teasing her. Why can't I? Yunshushu was stunned. Seeing him chuckle softly as if he was teasing her, she instantly blushed. What a meaningful question, she pouted softly and coquettishly. I was wrong. I shouldn't have ignited the fire. Spare me, okay? If you want me to spare you, sure. Muyaja pinched her cheeks and said seductively, say something nice, Call her something nice? Yunshushu racked her brains. Yaja? It doesn't sound nice. She said softly again, Ja, the man snorted. It doesn't sound nice. Yunshushu's face fell. She looked at him with some frustration and pursed her lips. For a moment, she didn't know what he wanted to hear. My dear husband, no. Not today. Why not? I won't give you another chance if you can't call out something nice. He snorted coldly and grabbed her by the throat. Then, he reached his hand between her legs. Yunshushu cried out in surprise. She dodged sensitively and grabbed his hand in a panic. She kissed his chiseled jaw and rubbed it intimately. My lord husband. She gently called out. Her eyes were as gentle as water, and her gaze moved. The softest part of his heart was ruthlessly and accurately struck. In an instant, one side collapsed. Are you satisfied? She wrapped her arms around his shoulders as a flattering smile appeared on her face. Tonight, I'll let you off. When he opened his mouth, it was an extra-legal benevolence. Yunshushu cupped his handsome face and kissed it. He hugged her and placed her on the bed. Then, he kissed her forehead and said, I'll take a shower first. You sleep first. I haven't showered either. Together? No. Her face heated up, and she rejected him on the spot. Wouldn't she be digging her own grave if she took a shower with him? Otherwise, when she wiped the gun and caught fire, the shower would become an impure one. This man was full of energy as if he never knew fatigue. However, she was really tired. Once her head hit the pillow, sleepiness overwhelmed her, and she fell asleep in the next second. Then, you go shower first. He patted her butt and ordered her to take a shower first. Chapter 1306. It looked like she had really put in a lot of effort to guard against him. Muyaja curled his lips and smiled. He found it interesting. Finally, when he came out of the shower, this little woman was lying quietly on the bed, lazily resting her head on her arm. She had already fallen asleep. He got off the bed gently. First, he propped himself up, glanced at her, then reached out and pulled her into his embrace. She occupied his entire body. Hugging her, he lowered his head to look at her lazy and charming posture as she slept. Only then did the man smile comfortably. Only when he hugged her, the feeling that she belonged to him felt more real. Muyaja reached out his fingers with interest and gently caressed her soft and smooth cheeks. His long fingers gently circled her silky black hair a few times, twirling it around his fingertips. He played with it, but no matter how much he played, he couldn't get enough of it. He lowered his head and gently kissed her face. You're mine. He leaned against her ear and said these words in a deep voice. In her sleep, she seemed to be a little disturbed. She lazily reached out her hand to brush it away, but he held it with one hand. He looked deeply at her. Just looking at her sleeping face like this gave him an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. This was probably what he meant by having it. To be able to hug her to sleep, and to be able to see her sleepy face when she woke up, this kind of lifestyle was something he had never imagined. It was a little unreal, but now it was happening right in front of him. This gave him a deep and powerful sense of belonging. She belonged to him. And he belonged to her too. He stretched out his arm and let her rest her head on it. He also laid down and hugged her waist. Just like that, they fell into a dream together. The next day, when Yunshushu woke up, it was already morning. She didn't know when, but the side of the bed was empty. He left without a sound. Yunshushu's heart suddenly felt empty. When she completely woke up from her hazy sleep, she realized that he must have gone to the office. She got up, walked to the window, and pulled open the curtains. The sun was shining brightly outside. Today was a good day, with blue skies and white clouds. The capital had not seen such clear weather in a long time. Along with it, her mood after waking up earlier had also become much brighter. Yunshusher entered the bathroom. After washing up, she walked out of the room and saw Yu walking out with a basket of clean clothes. Yu looked at her, smiled slightly, and his eyes softened. "Mommy, you woke up so early?" "Yes. Daddy left early in the morning. He must have gone to the company." Yunshusher nodded and suddenly glared at him. Yunshusher looked at the clothes basket in his hand with some astonishment. "Washing clothes?" Yu explained, "I woke up early today and had nothing to do, so I washed the clothes. Right now, I'm planning to go out and dry them." Yunshusher smiled and immediately said, "Mommy will dry them with you, okay?" "No need. Mommy's hand is injured, right? Since you're seriously injured, you should rest well." As Yu spoke, he glanced at the bandages on her wound, and his heart ached. Yunshusher's heart warmed. Her little warm boy was always so considerate. Chapter 1307. He pouted and blew gently with his little pink mouth. Transparent bubbles swelled up from the blowpipe and then floated in the air. Under the light of the sun, they refracted colorful illusions. Yu had made this blowpipe for fun when he was young. He used very simple tools to make a simple blowpipe. When Yu woke up, Xiao Yichen was also awake. He stood by the side and watched as Yu cleaned the house and washed the clothes. His injuries had not healed yet, and he did not know how to do housework. There was nothing he could do to help, so he stood by the side helplessly. Yu rummaged through the cabinets and took out a toy that he had made in the past. He also poured some soap water into it and let Xiao Yichen blow on it. Blowing bubbles was a childhood memory for many children. Yu rarely went out when he was young. He liked to lie on the windowsill and blow bubbles with his self-made blowpipe. He specially modified it and used the blowpipe he made to blow bubbles. They were big and round. To Xiao Yichen, this toy was extremely rare. He was addicted to playing with it. He sat on the flower bed and played with it with great interest. He felt that it was very interesting. He had never played with this toy when he was young. It was simple but interesting. Especially when he saw the big bubbles that he blew floating in the wind, he felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. "Yu, quick, look! I blew a big bubble." Xiao Yichen suddenly shouted excitedly. Yunshusher giggled and Xiao Yichen was instantly alerted. He looked up abruptly and saw that it was her. He ran over happily. "Mommy, you're awake?" Yunshusher squatted down and patted his head. "Yes." "Xiao Yichen, good morning." Xiao Yichen snorted and glanced at her with disdain. Good morning. The sun is already shining on your butt. Mommy is such a lazy pig." Yunshusher was a little embarrassed. Mu Yichen, are you asking for a beating? How dare he call Mommy a lazy pig? Then you're a lazy pig. Stupid and lazy." Yu was displeased. She placed her hands on her hips and scolded him. How dare he call Mommy a lazy pig? This brat was itching for a beating. Xiao Yichen pursed his lips and chuckled. Then, he hooked his arm around Yunshusher's arm and handed her the jar of soapy water. "Mommy, do you want to play too? Blow bubbles with me." Yu was speechless. "Mommy, ignore him." You're not even playing with me." Xiao Yichen poked his little finger, feeling wronged. Yu rolled her eyes coldly. "I have to dry the clothes. I don't have time to play with you." "Then Mommy, let's play without him." Xiao Yichen smiled mischievously like a mischievous little elf. Yunshusher nodded and let him hold her hand as they ran to the flower bed to play. Yu stared at Yunshusher and Xiao Yichen as they stood in the flower bed. From time to time, he could hear the sounds of laughter. What about him? He held a clothes rack in one hand and clean clothes in the other. He sat there doing manual labor and couldn't help but feel a little angry. Humph, however, in the blink of an eye, a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. The sun was bright and clear, and the laughter made his mood exceptionally cheerful. To him, this was a simple little happiness. Chapter 1308. The black Bentley slowly drove into Mu Group's private hospital. The hospital director was already waiting at the entrance with a row of people. The car door opened and Mu Yaja stepped out. The hospital director immediately led a group of people to greet him enthusiastically. It was as if the stars were surrounding the moon. Chairman Mu. We've been waiting for you for a long time. The hospital director smiled flatteringly. More than an hour later, Minyu called. At that time, the hospital director was still immersed in some gentle village. When he heard that a big shot from the Mu family was coming and asked him to wait, he quickly dressed up and rushed to the scene. The medical industry was a lucrative industry. Most of the medical centers and private hospitals in the country were controlled by the Mu Group. As for Mingda Hospital, it was the most famous private hospital in the capital. The hospital director, Li Changda, was able to sit in this position because he was promoted by the Mu family. Therefore, he served the Mu family like they were emperors. Mu Yaja glanced at him and asked calmly, "Where is she?" He did not bother with small talk and went straight to the point. The hospital director reacted for a few seconds and his face froze. She? May I know who you're referring to? Li Changda. I heard that a few days ago, my fourth uncle arranged for a woman to be admitted to the hospital. I'm here to see her. The hospital director was stunned for a while. He had not been in the hospital for the past few days, so naturally, he did not know the situation. The department director behind him immediately came forward and whispered a few words in his ear. He roughly told him what had happened in the hospital over the past few days. The hospital director immediately added, "Chairman Mu, are you talking about the patient that fourth uncle arranged to be admitted to the hospital a few days ago?" Yes. Mu Yaja seemed to have lost his patience. His voice was low and deep. The hospital director's heart skipped a beat. He said in a trembling voice, She's been controlled. Chairman Mu, I'll send someone to bring you there." With that, everyone followed behind him like stars surrounding the moon as they made their way to the hospital building. The psychiatric inpatient building. On the third floor, Mu Yaja walked through a long corridor. Then, everyone stopped at the door of Ward 5. Open the door. The psychiatric ward was different from other wards. It had a wooden door, and when the door was opened, an iron gate appeared. Mu Yaja stood at the door. Through the tightly shut iron gate and the crisscrossing iron bars, he could clearly see the scene in the ward. The layout of the ward was quite simple. The walls were painted white, and there was a window that was tightly sealed with iron bars. The window and door were tightly shut, leaving only an air vent. In the empty ward, there was nothing else except for a single bed. Beside the bed, Mu Wanru leaned against the bedside with her hair disheveled. Her pair of wide and empty eyes stared blankly out of the window. Her originally beautiful hair was now as messy as a ball of withered grass. He didn't know what kind of stains were stuck on his hair, but it looked very dirty. Chapter 1309. From time to time, she would even knock her head against the wall. Compared to the noble Mu Wanru she used to be, the current her was a stark contrast. Mu Yaja took a step forward and stood outside the iron bars. He looked at the dazed Mu Wanru in the ward and frowned. He held his breath and focused his mind. Finally, he could make out the words that she was muttering. Child, 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 child. Mu Wanru's cracked lips opened and closed incessantly. It was as if she had been possessed as she kept repeating these broken words. It was as if she was possessed by a demon. She twirled her hair with both hands. From time to time, she would pull and break her hair. Then, she would pull another strand of hair. Her fingers were trembling as she twisted and broke her hair. She kept repeating these actions as if she had lost all sense of pain. Ha! Ha! Child. Child. My child. So miserable. So miserable, she gripped her hair in grief. She was numb as if she had gone mad. Muyaja looked at her coldly and glanced at the medical staff behind him. What's wrong with her? Minyu frowned and said, Boss, I heard that when she was sent to the hospital, her mental state was already very bad. After being locked in the ward for a few days, she became crazy. He raised his eyebrows and made a further judgment. Crazy? Yes. Crazy. Minyu nodded and gave him a response. Was she really crazy? Muyaja narrowed his eyes in disgust. This woman's face was already annoying to begin with. Now that she looked like this, it was even more detestable. Could it be that this woman was up to something again? Was she pretending to be crazy? Unexpectedly, the moment he finished speaking, he alarmed the person in the ward. Mu Wanru raised her head abruptly. When she saw that it was Muyaja, she was stunned for a moment. She stopped her rambling and straightened her back when she saw him. The pair of empty eyes finally regained some focus, but they stared at him like the venomous snakes on the branches of a tropical rainforest. Muyaja looked expressionlessly at the pair of eyes that were wide open as if she had died with a grievance. Narrowing his eyes, he saw her suddenly stand up and huddle in a corner for a long time. As soon as she stood up, her body swayed and she fell to the ground again. Her head hit the headboard, but she didn't cry out in pain. It was as if she was really numb to pain. Then, she scrambled to get up from the ground and stared at him again. Suddenly, she tilted her head and smiled foolishly. She pursed her lips and shrunk into a corner, pressing herself against the wall. It was as if the person standing in front of her was a terrifying monster. You. Who are you? Muyaja narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Mu Wanru, don't play dumb with me. Mu Wanru didn't seem to understand what he said. She clumsily said a few words, as if she was struggling to digest his words. Then, like a child with low intelligence, she bit her lips. Did you see my child? Muyaja pursed his thin lips into a proud line and raised his eyebrows. Child? Ah. I know. Chapter 13:10. Muyaja furrowed his brows and turned his head sideways to cast a sidelong glance at his assistant, who was standing behind him, with a complicated expression. What's wrong with her? The nurse next to him carefully observed his expression and said, Chairman Mu, this patient seems to have suffered a lot of trauma earlier and has some mental problems. In short, she had lost her mind. When Mu Wanru heard someone addressing her as Chairman Mu, it was as if the pain in the deepest part of her memory was suddenly evoked. She let out a tragic scream and suddenly stretched out her hands toward him. Her 10 fingers were stiff and twisted as they tightened. Aja. Aja, is that you? Aja, is that you? She suddenly pulled up the corners of her lips, revealing an extremely strange smile. She laughed bitterly a few times, but immediately after, she let out a mournful and sorrowful cry. She cried for a while, then laughed for a while. Suddenly, she screamed and jumped up from the ground. Her feet staggered, and she almost fell as she threw herself towards the door. Bam! Her body and the iron gate made a loud noise. Mu Wanru held the iron gate tightly and struggled to reach out her hand through the gap, throwing herself at him. Minyu immediately put an arm in front of Muyaja and separated him from her. Boss, back off. Be careful that she doesn't hurt you. Ha ha ha. Mu Wanru suddenly let out a series of earth-shattering and shrill laughter. Her eyes widened ferociously as she stared at Muyaja's figure. Her face was like a withered flower and she looked like a malicious spirit that had crawled out from hell. It was terrifying and sinister. Aja, I've been waiting for you here for so long. You're here. Are you here to take me away? Are you finally here to take me away? Without waiting for a response, she cried and laughed at the same time. I've been waiting for you for so long. It's been so tiring. Take me away, okay? Suddenly, she fell silent and carefully looked around as if she didn't see the person standing beside Muyaja. She lowered her voice and said, "The people here are all demons. They abuse me, they hit me, they put me under house arrest, they torture me. Can you take me away from here?" "Oh right." Mu Wanra's eyes suddenly lit up and said mysteriously, I have good news for you." Muyaja looked at her extremely ugly face and asked coldly, "What good news?" He. I'm pregnant. Haha. I'm pregnant, do you know that? I'm pregnant." Mu Wanra suddenly, as if she had gone mad, to her face was filled with joy. Her entire face was twisted with joy. "I'm pregnant. God, I've never thought that I would have my own child in my life. Which quack dared to say that I'm infertile? His dog eyes must be blind." All of a sudden, her face froze for a moment before turning pale again. "But, where's the child? The child is missing." "Why is the child missing?" I can't find him. Can you help me find the child?" "That's our child. He's going to be the head of the Mu family in the future and the successor of the Mu group. When that time comes, I'll be able to become the mistress of the Mu family because of my son, right?" Chapter 13:11. Our child? Muyaja smiled playfully and cruelly said, "That's not our child." Mu Wanru was startled. The smile on her face froze in an instant. Yes. That's not our child." Mu Wanru suddenly lowered her head guiltily. From time to time, she carefully looked up at his face. "That's not our child. You know it. She was extremely guilty. Her hands helplessly twisted her messy hair with a conflicted look on her face. "That child is mine and Aaron's." "Yes, it's mine and Aaron's." "Yes. You're blaming me, aren't you?" She suddenly raised her head and looked at his cold face. Her breathing became urgent. "You're blaming me, aren't you?" "Yes, I betrayed you." "Yes, I know. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I slept with a man. It's so dirty. I feel so dirty, too." With that, she began to rub her body hard. Muyaja's face was cold. He lowered his head and looked at her, unmoved. Mu Wanra's voice trembled as she started to speak incoherently. "So, you're angry. You're angry with me. You blame me for betraying you, so you snatched my child, right? But I know that I'm wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I shouldn't have poisoned Grandpa's medicine. I shouldn't have snatched Yunshusher's jade. Yes. It's because that jade is beautiful. I like it, but I shouldn't have snatched it." Mu Wanra grabbed the metal bars again and stared at him with wide eyes. "I shouldn't have sent people to kill Yun Shusher and Yun Tianyu." "Yes. So you're angry. Don't be angry, okay? Let me off and return my child to me." "I'm wrong." Muyaja remained silent. Mu Wanra was even more anxious now. She reached out her hand and scratched in his direction with all her might. "Aja, is my child with you? Did you hide my child? Return it to me. Return it to me, okay?" She mumbled that she wanted the child. Muyaja asked without turning his head, "Where's her child?" The nurse said, "She just had a miscarriage. The child is gone." "The child is gone?" Her words were, without a doubt, a greater provocation to Mu Wanro. When she heard this, she was like an ignited explosive. She went into a frenzy. She grabbed the metal bars with both hands and tugged at it. "You're lying. You're lying. My child is still alive. My child. Give me back my child. Give me back my child." "Ah!" The mournful screams echoed and tore through the long corridor. Mu Wanru screamed at the top of her lungs. Due to her excessive agitation and anger, her face had turned the color of a pig's liver. She seemed to have gone crazy as she bawled at the top of her lungs. Return, give me my child. Muyaja, you're the one who killed my child. Return my child to me. If not, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Minyu was furious and scolded, you mad dog. Biting people for no reason. The nurse on duty hurried over and ordered everyone to stand back. She then opened the door. Mu Wanra was about to rush out when the nurse picked up a pillow and gently said, your child is here, ? Chapter 13:12. Mu Wanra was called back to her senses. She turned around in a daze and her gaze fell on the pillow in the nurse's arms. It was a soft, white pillow. Mu Wanra's eyes widened in an instant. Then, she rushed over ecstatically and snatched the pillow from the nurse's arms. Child, my baby. The moment Mu Wanra hugged the pillow, she retracted her sharp aura. A motherly gentleness appeared on her face, and her eyes became docile. Baby. Sob, mommy misses you so much. The medical staff behind her looked at each other. Taking advantage of this moment, they quickly rushed forward and swiftly gave her a dose of tranquilizer. Mu Wanra's body trembled violently. Then, her eyes rolled back and her entire body went limp. A few doctors and nurses worked together to lift her onto the bed. Then, they went out and locked the door. From the beginning to the end, Muyaja's face was expressionless. He only looked coldly at the crazy woman. Under the influence of the tranquilizer, she was quiet. However, she still hugged the pillow tightly in her arms and refused to let go. There was no doubt that this person had gone crazy. At first, he wondered if she was playing some trick and pretending to be crazy in front of him. But now, he was sure. This woman had gone completely insane. Moreover, he was quite crazy. What exactly triggered her? According to the attending doctor, the patient has been living in fear for a long time and suffered a heavy blow overnight. As a result, he developed a serious mental disorder. Minyu responded to his suspicions. That day, after Mu Wanra woke up, she found out that her child was not saved. It had suffered a miscarriage and even her uterus had been removed. It wasn't easy for her to have a child, but it was gone. This caused Mu Wanra so much pain that she had some self-mutilating behavior. After coming out of the operating room, her condition became more and more unstable. She kept asking for a child. It seemed that she couldn't accept the pain of losing a child. She was pitiful and hateful. Muyaja slowly turned around and was about to leave when he saw a figure at the end of the corridor. At the end of the corridor, Mu Lianjue was leaning on a cane with someone supporting him. His back was against the light, so his expression could not be seen clearly. Muyaja was stunned. Then, coldness and hatred appeared in his eyes. He raised his head and strode toward him. When he reached Mu Lianjue, Muyaja stopped in his tracks and coldly lowered his head to look down at him from above. His face was cold and sinister. Fourth Mu's fourth brother. The moment he spoke, his voice seemed to freeze 1,000 miles of ice. He directly addressed him as Mu Si, not intending to give him any face at all. Mu Lianjue's body trembled slightly as he raised his head to look at him. In the next second, Muyaja suddenly reached out and grabbed his throat with his strong and broad palm. He exerted so much force that one could faintly hear a few weak joints groaning. Mu Lianjue was caught off guard by his sudden move. The cane in his hand fell to the ground with a thud. Grabbing him by the throat, Muyaja pushed him hard and pinned him against the wall. Chapter 13:13. Mu Lianjue did not even have the time to react before he was pinned down by the other. He heard Muyaja call him by his name without any honorifics. Fourth Mu, that was a title that only someone of Mu Linfeng's seniority could address him by. It was clear that Muyaja did not intend to give him any face. The moment Muyaja saw him, icy fury surged in his heart, and he could not restrain it. This man was too much of a bully. What did he take him for? Did he really think that just because he didn't show his power, he could play with him in the palm of his hand without fear? What a joke. Look at what kind of shady business he had done behind his back. He did not execute him immediately back then because Second Master Mu was there to stop him. He was busy looking for Yu back then, so he was not in the mood to deal with him. Look at what he had done now. He actually sent an assassin to kill a 7-year-old child. Mu Wanra had lost her mind because of the shock of losing her child. What about him? He could see that this old fart had also gone insane. Mu Lianjue was choked by him. The veins on his forehead bulged as his blood rushed to the top of his head. Due to suffocation, his eyeballs bulged out. Mu Yaja, what are you doing? He struggled to spit out a few words from his throat and looked at him angrily. Did he know that what he was doing was treacherous? In terms of seniority, Mu Yaja should respectfully address him as fourth uncle. He was his elder, after all. He, Mu Lianjue, had a prominent and honorable position in the Mu family. He went up to him and grabbed his neck without saying a word. He looked angry and called him Fourth Mu. This was more than just treason, this was practically a rebellion. Who gave him the guts to do that? Mu Yaja glared at him coldly. His eyes were bloodshot and full of murderous intent. Mu Lianjue could see the terrifying murderous intent in his eyes. It was real murderous intent. It was not just anger. Mu Lianjue's heart was filled with nervousness and fear. He had never seen such a terrifying expression on Mu Yaja's usually cold and calm face. It was as if he was an ancient king who had been angered and turned violent. His pair of cold and sharp eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. What are you doing? Frightened, Mu Lianjue gripped Mu Yaja's wrist tightly with both hands and began to pry his fingers apart. The Mu family had an illustrious background. The Muse would be arranged to serve in the military when they were young. Just like Mu Lianjue, he had also undergone harsh training in the military when he was younger. Even though he was getting on in years, he still had strength in his hands. However, the current Mu Yaja was at the peak of his anger. All the strength in his body seemed to have condensed in this hand that was choking his neck. No matter how hard he struggled and tried to break free, it was all in vain. Mu Lianjue felt increasingly suffocated. His eyelids twitched uncontrollably as he gasped for air. Mu Yaja's grip tightened, as if he could snap his fragile throat in the next second. I've lost my last bit of patience with you. Mu Yaja sneered evilly. His eyes were like the tip of a cold knife as they landed on the man's face, causing him to feel a sharp pain. Chapter 13-14 D*MNU, Mu Lianjue. As soon as he said that, Mu Yaja tightened his grip on his neck. In the next second, he felt the world spinning before his eyes. The excruciating pain in his throat cut off all possibility of breathing. He could only feel that his throat was so fragile that it could not withstand a single blow from the other and would be crushed in the next instant. This brat was bent on putting him to death. He did not leave any way out at all. How heartless. Was he so heartless that he would strangle his fourth uncle to death for a woman and maybe starred from who knows where? It was as if he could hear the joints in his throat creaking as they tightened. Cough, cough. Mu Lianjue gradually lost his strength and could no longer struggle. Madness. This was madness. Mu Lianjue glanced at him, only to see a version of Mu Yaja he had never seen before. One was cold, heartless, and exuded a sharp, murderous aura from head to toe. Mu Yaja glared at him with bloodshot eyes. His pair of dark eyes seemed to be filled with a thick fog of viciousness. It was as if he could topple the mountains and overturn the seas and swallow him whole. Minyu hurried over from behind, only to be stunned by this scene. Realizing that things were not looking good, he hurried forward to calm Mu Yaja down. Boss, what are you doing? Mu Yaja was not in the mood to respond to him. He only stared coldly at Mu Lianjue's face. The evil and heartless expression on his face made Mu Lianjue's heart sink into an ice cellar. No, I don't want to die, I can't die. Mu Lianjue kicked him with all his might. However, even when those heavy kicks landed on Mu Yaja's calf, the latter's posture remained cold and still. It was as if he did not care about his attacks at all. Minyu panicked and went forward to stop him. He knew very well that although this was a private property under the Mu Group, it was still related to the medical industry and was closely linked to the government. No matter how powerful and influential the Mu family was, if someone were to die here, it would be an unimaginable blow to the Mu family. Min Yu was puzzled. In his mind, his boss had always been calm and astute, and he was able to clearly distinguish between personal grudges and benefits. So, why was he so agitated right now that he'd completely forgotten where he was? Although Mingda Hospital was under the Mu family's name, there were many mouthpieces of the government in the hospital. He shouldn't have done that. However, Min Yu was wrong about one thing. Since Mu Yaja dared to do this, he must have a way to suppress this matter. Even if he personally dealt with Mu Lianjue in front of everyone in this hospital today, he still had the ability to control the situation. He wasn't afraid of killing anyone. Moreover, as the successor of the Mu family, he had experienced a lot of light and also a lot of darkness. He could be so ruthless because he was not afraid at all. He had the ability to kill Mu Lianjue without causing a stir. Once he hardened his heart, not to mention Mu Lianjue, even if he had to go head-to-head with someone like Mu Linfeng, he would be fearless. No one could do anything to him. Chapter 13-15. Mu Lianjue had violated so many of his rights and trespassed on so many forbidden grounds, yet he still looked at ease when he met him. Did he not know that the reason why he was so calm and unhurried was that he was confident that he would not dare to do anything to him because he was his fourth uncle? Or was he so sure that he had a certain status in the Mu family that he naively thought that he would not dare to do anything to him? Min Yu panicked when he saw that Mu Lianjue's breathing was getting shorter and shorter. His face had turned red, and the veins on his forehead were about to pop out. He was so anxious that he broke out in cold sweat. Could it be that the boss was really going to kill someone? Thus, he braced himself and went forward to stop him. "Boss, calm down. Don't get angry, lest the harmony in the family is damaged." Mu Yaja easily pushed him aside with one hand. "Get lost." Just as he was about to lose his wits after being pushed aside, an angry bellow was heard from behind him. "Are you crazy? Stop it." It was Mu Linfeng's voice. Mu Yaja frowned slightly and glanced back from the corner of his eye. While he was distracted, Mu Lianjue mustered all his strength and finally broke free from him. He fell to the side and hugged his neck as he coughed and gasped for air. Cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Lianjue could not stop coughing. When he raised his head to look at Mu Yaja, he looked as if he had seen a ghost and could not help but retreat backward. He was old, it was difficult for him to fight against him. Mu Yaja turned around and bumped into Mu Linfeng. Mu Linfeng, who was dressed in a well-ironed military uniform, slowly walked toward him, his footsteps like a gust of wind. He was different from the others. Mu Yaja had only trained in the army when he was young. Mu Linfeng, on the other hand, had been in the army since he was 10 years old. In a sense, he had devoted his life to power. Strictly speaking, he was the real power behind the Mu family and had toyed with it for most of his life. Now that the Mu family had developed to this point, they were naturally no longer just a wealthy family in the business world. With such a large family, they were involved in both legal and illegal activities. The one who represented the legal side was naturally the head of the capital's military, Mu Linfeng. Moreover, his wife was from a powerful family. Hence, the power in his hands, even Mu Yaja, was not to be underestimated. Mu Linfeng came to the hospital today to prescribe some medicine. He had some old ailments. While he was at it, to meet Mu Lianjue and make some arrangements. Mu Linfeng knew his nephew well, he was a hot-blooded man. Mu Lianjue had done so many taboo things, his nephew would definitely not let him off so easily. Once the dust settled, he would definitely offend Mu Lianjue. Be it through open means or underhanded means, he would definitely settle this score. If things went wrong, Mu Lianjue's old life would be lost. Mu Linfeng, on the other hand, cared about their brotherhood. Perhaps, at his age, he was no longer so high-spirited and emotional. He was worried that Mu Yaja would secretly deal with Mu Lianjue, so he asked him to go abroad for a period of time to avoid the limelight. He came to the hospital to check on Mu Wanru's condition and to understand the situation from the doctor. Chapter 13:16. Thankfully, he had appeared in time and stopped him in time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to think further. From the earlier scene, Mu Linfeng had indirectly experienced how ruthless his nephew could be. Mu Yaja looked at him with a lukewarm expression. "Second uncle, why are you here? You're crazy. How impudent. Are you crazy? What were you trying to do earlier?" "Nothing." Mu Yaja sneered. "It's been so many years. Some old grudges should be settled with someone, right?" "Nonsense." Mu Linfeng was flustered and exasperated. He was about to say something when he suddenly paused and looked around with a warning look in his eyes. When Min Yu saw this, he naturally understood what he meant. He immediately cleared the crowd and left the stage himself. At this point, only the uncle and nephew were left in the corridor. After everyone left, Mu Linfeng glared at him. "Don't mess around. Yaja, he's your fourth uncle and your elder. Do you think it's appropriate for you to do this? No matter what he did wrong, he's still your elder. What you did earlier was simply disgraceful." Mu Yaja's face turned cold. "Why, second uncle? From your tone, it sounds like you're trying to absolve fourth Mu." Mu Linfeng retorted, "Fourth Mu, is that a title you have the right to call him? You should respectfully call him fourth uncle. Don't be rude. What you did was disgraceful. Second uncle, you're the one who has no right to interfere in the grudge between me and fourth Mu." Mu Yaja sneered. This time, he didn't give Mu Linfeng any face. In short, he didn't give him a way out. Mu Linfeng almost fainted from his insolent tone. "Do you still have any respect for your elders? Do you still have any manners?" Mu Linfeng's temper flared as he scolded without any grace. "You must remember that he's your elder and you're his junior. No matter what he did wrong, it's not up to you to act rashly here, do you understand? Second uncle, are you going to interfere in this matter to the end?" "I don't know what you're talking about. I won't interfere with you, but you have to be clear about the difference in status. I don't want to see what just happened again." Mu Yaja looked at him deeply. His eyes were cold and the corners of his thin lips lifted slightly. However, he asked a question that pierced one's heart. It seems that second uncle is determined to protect him. His tone was incomparably gloomy, causing people to tremble with fear. Mu Linfeng was furious. At the same time, he looked into Mu Yaja's eyes, which were unfathomable. "Second uncle, aren't you afraid of hurting our friendship by doing this?" Mu Linfeng clenched his fists and took a deep breath before saying, "If the family is harmonious, everything will prosper." As soon as he said that, Mu Yaja chuckled softly and coldly. It was as if this sentence was the biggest joke to him. "Your words are truly laughable and lamentable." Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and walked up to Mu Linfeng. He lowered his head slightly and cast a cold glance at the latter's face from the corner of his eyes. "If the family is harmonious, everything will prosper." "You," Mu Yaja suddenly asked, "Second uncle, you should be aware of what happened more than 10 years ago, right?" Chapter 13:17. Mu Yaja, on the other hand, caught too many chilling things from his face. He continued to ask, "You know the details of my father's car accident and my mother's death, don't you?" Mu Linfeng did not say anything. Mu Yaja continued coldly, "So, what am I to you? I'm just a pawn." "You. Calm down." "I'm very calm." Mu Yaja closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were so cold that it made one's heart palpitate. "I'm very calm." Mu Linfeng's heart sank when he saw this. With a pale face, he explained, "About your father's car accident more than a decade ago, If I had foreseen it, I would have stopped it. But I was only aware of that matter in hindsight." Upon hearing this, Mu Yaja's lips tugged expressionlessly into a half-smile. Fourth bro is indeed muddle-headed in this matter. However, it's been more than a decade. Since he's let it go, you should let it go too, shouldn't you? Now that you have the entire Mu group, why do you have to care about the past? It's been so many years, let's just settle it. Mu Yaja laughed. Settle it? After more than 10 years, such a huge blood feud could be resolved with just a few words. Mu Yaja smiled and replied coldly, sure. Mu Linfeng looked at him in surprise, only to hear him say sinisterly, if you want it to be settled, you'll have to pay with your life. After saying that, he turned around and walked away. Mu Linfeng stood rooted to the ground in a daze. He understood what Mu Yaja's words meant. He was definitely going to use Mu Lianjue's life to settle this debt. Mu Lianjue stood up shakily, his face as pale as wax. Second brother, fourth bro, look at you, you've incurred this debt. Why did you do such a foolish thing back then? Mu Linfeng glared at him in exasperation. Mu Lianjue's face paled. If it was in the past, he would definitely have said in an old-fashioned manner, humph. That lad definitely won't dare to do anything to me. However, after what happened just now, he could clearly see the murderous intent in Mu Yaja's eyes. Now, he did not dare to say such a thing no matter what. Second brother, don't you understand me? Why did you do that back then? You've seen it too. You've seen it clearly. In terms of ability and skill, am I any worse than Liancheng? I'm only more outstanding. However, how did that old fart make such a decision? The Mu family's inheritance's position? But in the end, it's given to Liancheng. I can't accept this. Can you accept it? Even though you don't say anything on the surface, you're still indignant deep down. Mu Linfeng fell silent. In the dim corridor, against the light, two elders in their 50s stood facing each other, but they could not see each other's faces. Chapter 13:18. He coughed violently when he got agitated and then said hoarsely, I didn't do that purely for my own benefit. I did it for the Mu group. I can't do it. I can't watch the Mu family's empire fall into the hands of a piece of trash in just one night. That's our blood, sweat, and tears. I won't allow him to trample on it. Enough. Mu Linfeng sighed as if he had lost all his strength. That matter is already in the past, I don't want to pursue it anymore. Fourth bro, you should stop now. Second brother, what should I do now? You can't leave me alone. Mu Linfeng looked at him and sighed faintly. Fourth bro, when we were young, I could tell that you were the most utilitarian among us. You were the most ambitious. I admit that among the brothers, your ability is considered to be quite outstanding. I won't deny it. But the ridiculous things you've done are too much. Mu Lianjue gritted his teeth. I was young and impetuous back then, I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept it. That's why I wanted to let that old man have a taste of the pain of losing his most beloved things one by one. That's enough, shut up. Mu Linfeng turned around. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, later, I'll send someone to protect you and arrange a flight to America for you as soon as possible. Lie low for now while you're abroad. You can come back when I summon you. I know. He was indignant, but there was nothing he could do now. He had lost this war. As a loser, he had nothing left and his momentum was gone. Now, he could only lie low abroad. Mu Yaja received a call from Mu Linfeng when he returned to the office. When he picked up the call, he went straight to the point. There's something I want to tell you. I'll be frank with you, I'm protecting fourth bro. If you want to give second uncle face, don't touch him. Otherwise, it'll hurt the harmony in the family. Although Mu Linfeng's tone was firm and left no room for negotiation, it was rare for him to lower his stance in front of him. After weighing the pros and cons, Mu Linfeng decided to ease the tension with Mu Yaja. When Mu Yaja heard this, he sneered, Second uncle, do you need to report your decisions to me? Yaja. Everything should come to an end. Let bygones be bygones. Heh. Second uncle is also responsible for this matter. If second uncle had anticipated your fourth uncle's ambition, he would have taken precautions. You should understand that second uncle values the unity of the family and doesn't like to split up. I also feel very regretful and sad about your father's death. I am also very angry with your fourth uncle, very angry. However, some of his methods are too much, and it seems unreasonable. What is a favor? Second uncle, how can you talk about favors with me in the Mu family? In such a big Mu family, there is only the cold struggle for power. What is there to talk about? How laughable. How pathetic. Just like a person who drinks water, only he knows whether it is hot or cold. Perhaps, in Mu Linfeng's eyes, Mu Lianqing's death was just a trivial matter that could be summed up with a simple word of regret. It was as if a single word from him could float away with the wind. Every step in the rich family was treacherous. A single mistake could lead to eternal damnation. The struggle for power was never-ending. Even though he knew this, he still could not forget the pain. The pain that almost destroyed him. Chapter 13:19. Mu Linfeng fell silent. The silence was so long that just as Mu Yaja was about to hang up the call, he heard his uncle's heavy and powerless voice. What do you want me to do for you to be magnanimous? Mu Yaja's voice sank as he retracted his smile. His cold voice sounded apathetic. Be magnanimous? Second uncle, you must be joking. What kind of tone is that? Yaja, is this the attitude you should have toward your elders? I'm your second uncle, don't be too arrogant and insufferably arrogant. Mu Lianjue flew into a rage out of humiliation at his indifference. Yaja, consider it as giving your second uncle some face. For the sake of our family's bloodline, at least don't be so ruthless. He's your fourth uncle, after all, the same blood flows in his veins. Mu Yaja had completely lost his patience with him and was disgusted with his uncle's haughty attitude. He snorted coldly, aren't you overestimating your own status by saying that? Mu Linfeng was deeply stunned on the other end of the line. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect this lad to speak to him in such a manner. In the past, he would never speak to him in such a manner. While he was in a daze, Mu Yaja mercilessly retorted, it's hard to say who's giving face in this matter. I've already made up my mind. If second uncle insists on protecting him from me, you can try. You can try. What a boastful tone. Mu Linfeng was furious. An uncontrollable rage exploded in his chest as he scolded, Yaja, aren't you going overboard with your words? Don't forget who you're relying on to have your current status. Who did you rely on to be able to sit in the position of successor? Think about it again. Who are you relying on to become the head of the Mu family? Without me, can you have your current status? Don't even think about it. Don't forget how pathetic you would have been back then if it weren't for me. It was me who helped you to your current position, hee hee. You're different now. Your wings have hardened, so you want to soar high, right? You're so arrogant that you won't give me any face, will you? Second uncle, don't forget that I owe you all these years, and it's about time I pay you back. Hee hee. You support me? The smile on Mu Yaja's face disappeared, and his eyes turned cold. Second uncle, I can't help but admire you for making use of me sound so dignified. Yes, you were the one who supported me, but did you think that I was able to sit in this position all because of you? Not necessarily. Not everyone can reach where they are today with your support. Back then, no matter who it was, no one would be able to replace my achievements today. Mu Linfeng's expression changed drastically as viciousness surfaced on his face. Mu Yaja paused and said with a mocking smile, moreover, should have paid back all the favors you've given me over the years. Have you forgotten? You can't do those dirty things with your status. Those dirty tricks that you couldn't complete were done by me. Why? Are you trying to erase this bit of credit with just a few words from you? Mu Linfeng questioned sternly, then, what exactly do you want now? Chapter 13:20. When Mu Linfeng heard that, he was both furious and shocked. Firstly, it was because of Mu Yaja's arrogant tone. Secondly, it was because of the implied warning in his words. Mu Yaja had no intention of giving him any face at all. While he flew into a rage out of humiliation, he also felt a trace of lingering fear in his heart. He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. How loyal were the people he had groomed for so many years to him? In the past, Muyaja had always been respectful toward his elders. Despite his arrogance, callousness, and indifference, he was still very respectful toward the elders in the family. Now, however, from his words, Mu Linfeng could tell that he was actually being unreasonable and rebellious toward him. He couldn't help but wonder if he should teach him a lesson and teach him a lesson. With that thought in mind, his words became impolite. Haha. Don't go overboard. Humph. You brat, you actually know how to argue with me, huh? Fine. Since you put it that way, I have nothing else to say. You settle your score, and I'll protect my people. If I can't protect them, it'll be because of your ability. However, let me say this first. Yaja, don't blame me for not reminding you when the time comes. What kind of consequences will your actions bring upon you? Don't you think it's time for you to examine the situation you're in now? You've just ascended to the position, and everyone in the family is suspicious of you. If you act rashly at this time, aren't you afraid of those gossips? When the time comes, if there are unfavorable rumors about you within the family, you'd better be careful not to lose your position as the head of the family. Second uncle, you should know me well enough. No one can stop me from doing what I want to do. It's either I don't do it. If I do, I won't leave a way out. I think it's best if you don't waste your efforts. Otherwise, I'll embarrass you when the time comes. His uncle warned him. In that case, he also gave him a piece of advice. Mu Linfeng gritted his teeth. You'll regret it. Mu Yaja coldly added, I've never regretted what I've done. Second uncle, you're overthinking it. With that, he cut off the line. On the other end, Mu Linfeng was so infuriated that he slammed the phone on the table and stood up abruptly. With his hands behind his back, he paced back and forth on the spot, clearly irritated. This brat's wings were really getting harder and harder. How could he say something like that? Mu Linfeng was furious. On the other end, Mu Yaja hung up the phone and pondered for a moment. As his second uncle, he was bound to protect his nephew. There was one thing that second uncle had nothing to say about. Thus, even though he had some disputes with Mu Yanjue when he was younger, he had let it go at this age. On account of their brotherhood, Mu Linfeng was naturally unwilling to watch the family members kill each other. If it were any other matter, Mu Yaja would not have brushed him off for his sake. However, this matter was out of the question. Putting aside the matter of Mu Yanjue harming his parents more than a decade ago, the thought of him sending trained assassins to kill Yu, for the sake of exterminating all of them was intolerable. Who gave him the courage to touch his woman and son? Mu Yaja then made a call to a mysterious person. Chapter 13:21. When Lu Jinyu heard Mu Yaja's deep tone, he knew that this was not a small matter. Thus, he did not waste time on small talk and said forcefully, Chief, tell me. Mu Yaja knocked on the table and said in a deep voice, I want something, but it's not suitable for me to show my face with my current status. I need you to secretly give me the order. What is it? Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and said word by word, I want a person's life. In the afternoon, Yun Shishir was coaxing the two children to read a script at home when she suddenly received a call from her father. Some time ago, he rushed back to his hometown to attend a funeral. It was said that his mother had passed away, so he hurried back. Later, he called to say that he would be observing mourning in his hometown for a period of time. He then reminded Yun Shishir to take care of herself at home. Yun Shishir also reminded him to take care of his health. The father-daughter pair usually kept in touch with each other, but this time, Yun Yeching had called to discuss something with her. Shishir, it's like this. There's something I want to discuss with you. Dad, what's the matter? Do you still remember Uncle Yeho whom you met when you were young? Uncle Yeho, Yun Yeho, was Yun Yeching's younger brother. Yun Yeching's hometown was in a small county dozens of kilometers away from the capital. There was a backward village called Yun Family Village. The scenery there was picturesque, but due to its location, the village's economy had always been backward. Yun Yeching had an elderly mother, an elder sister, and a younger brother. He had always been closer to his younger brother. When he was very young, his father passed away early due to a mining accident. His mother raised the 3 children single-handedly. When he was young, he entrusted his mother to his younger brother, Yun Yeho, and came to the city to make a living. When he was young, he was high-spirited and had a good head for business, so he worked hard to make a name for himself. At that time, he wanted to bring his mother and siblings to the city to enjoy life. In the end, his old mother was used to living in the countryside and refused. Yun Yeho, on the other hand, allowed Yun Yecheng to develop his career in the city with peace of mind. Since his mother was not in the city, it was only natural for him to stay at home and take care of her. Yun Lingru, on the other hand, could not wait to rush to the city. Her father arranged a job for her, so she settled down in the city, got married, and gave birth to a pair of children. This time, however, he was talking about Yun Yeho. It turned out that Yun Yecheng's mother's health had deteriorated a few years ago, and Yun Yeho had always been filial to her on behalf of his elder brother. Yun Yecheng would send a sum of money to his hometown every month, but ever since the Yun family's downfall, he could not help but feel a little strapped for cash. Hence, he could only send a small amount of money each month. Because of this, Yun Yeho's wife had complained about this. Yun Yeho, on the other hand, was an honest man. He did not complain at all and took good care of his mother all the time. It was just that the weather was unpredictable. A year ago, when Yun Yeho was working at a construction site, the safety measures were not in place, and he fell from the 3rd floor. Coincidentally, half of his body was paralyzed. From then on, he could only stay in bed and needed someone to take care of him. Chapter 13:22. Yun Yeho was afraid that his father would worry about this matter, so he did not bring it up. The main reason was that he was afraid that he would become a burden to his father. Moreover, he was an upright person, so he did not mention it to his father. It was only when he rushed back to his hometown to handle the funeral that he learned about this matter. He had mixed feelings about it. All these years, Yun Yeho had been the one to fulfill his filial piety on his behalf. Now that his younger brother had fallen ill, it was only after a year that he, as his older brother, learned about it for the first time. When he saw his brother lying paralyzed on the bed with his weathered face, he suddenly felt guilty. He had let his younger brother down. Now that the funeral was over, Yun Yecheng had the idea of bringing his brother back to the city to live with him. He wanted to take good care of his younger brother while he was still young. However, he remembered that his house in the city had been sold, and he was now living with Yun Shishir. Would it be bad for him to bring his younger brother back? Although their house was big, he was afraid of disturbing Yun Shishir when he thought of how she would have her own family and life in the future. Hence, when Yun Yecheng called to ask for her opinion on this matter, he brought it up to her. Shishir, I know that you're kind-hearted and won't reject my request. However, I still hope that you won't force yourself. I haven't been filial to you all these years. Now that your brother is sick, I feel bad and want to bring him back to the city to take care of him. Will you be angry with me? Yun Shishir was silent for a moment. Yun Shishir had met this man twice when she was young. This time, not long after she had arrived at the Yun residence, Yun Yeho and his family had gone to the city to visit their relatives. Wearing rustic clothes, they brought along local specialties, fruits, and vegetables from their hometown to visit Yun Yecheng's family. At that time, he had even carried her. He was very close to children and especially liked them. Between Yun Shishir and Yun Shishir, he especially liked the docile and obedient girl and doted on her. The second time was when Yun Yecheng's business was ruined and his family was in dire straits. Yun Yeho, on the other hand, had come here in secret behind his wife's back. He knew that his brother was having a hard time and that their family was in dire straits. Thus, he secretly gave him tens of thousands of yuan, which he had scrimped and saved, to pay off his brother's debt. How could Yun Yecheng accept it? He rejected it again and again. His brother, on the other hand, was honest and did not say much. He just quietly stuffed the money into the cupboard before he left. Yun Shishir had a good impression of her brother. He was an honest and upright person. The moment she heard that Yun Yecheng planned to bring her brother over, she was still considering where to settle him down. Xiangti walk? That can't be. It's too inconvenient. Most importantly, given her current occupation, if she were to be followed by the paparazzi, it would definitely disturb her husband, who was planning to move to the city to recuperate. Chapter 1323. Usually, I'll stay there to take care of him. However, because of this, it might be difficult for me to take care of you. I hope you can understand me. After all, Grandma passed away and your uncle is half paralyzed. It's quite serious. That's why I want to take good care of him. Dad, what are you talking about? Yun Shishir did not know whether to laugh or cry. She said helplessly, you earn 5,000 yuan a month. After deducting the rent, how much can you afford? This. It was not that he had not thought of this problem. He was extremely vexed. He also thought of asking Yun Shishir for help, but he was too ashamed to do so. However, he heard Yun Shishir say, how about this? The house we're living in now has 3 floors. If Uncle doesn't mind, we can put him on the 3rd floor. How about it? However, I'm afraid that the little guy will cause a ruckus and affect his rest. If you're worried about this, I can contact someone and buy a small bungalow nearby. The environment will be more elegant and secluded. This way, I'll be close to him and can visit him when necessary. Dad, your health isn't good, so don't go out and work. Stay at home and accompany Uncle. I'll hire a caretaker to take care of him regularly. Who knows, if the care is in place, there might be a glimmer of hope for him to stand again. Don't you think so? This won't do. You're working so hard and taking care of a child. You're already too busy, you can't do this. He did not want her to work too hard and run around for his debt of gratitude. If that was the case, he would rather think of a solution himself. Dad, must you treat me like an outsider? It's not a big deal. Now, I have the ability, and I'm earning more money. My life is no longer like before, when I can't make ends meet. It's time for me to be filial to you. You've raised me for so many years, you deserve this filial piety. That's why you don't have to say such things to me. I know you're thinking for my sake, but I feel very sad when I hear it. Yun Yeching was stunned. Suddenly, a slightly choked voice came from the other end. Yun Shishir didn't notice this slight movement. Instead, she said, besides, Dad. You've been in the city for so many years, while Uncle stayed in the hometown to observe filial piety on your behalf and take care of Grandma. A few years ago, he worked at the construction site for more than 10 years and suffered for most of his life. Moreover, when our family was in dire straits, Uncle always remembered us and thought of us. Taking care of him is also the responsibility of a junior, isn't it? Sure, I'm already very touched that you think this way. However, you shouldn't take everything on yourself. Let's do it this way. Dad will bring Uncle and the others here. Then, we'll do what I said before and rent a small house for Uncle to rest. We'll talk about the rest later. Dad, this is not appropriate. Yun Shishir sighed. Hey, Shishir, listen to me. I have my reasons for making such arrangements. What is the reason? At the mention of this, Yun Yeching stammered and refused to say. He only said that it would implicate Yun Shishir. Under Yun Shishir's repeated questioning, he finally spilled the beans. Chapter 1324. When Yun Yeho was young, he relied on his hard work to build a new house in his hometown and married a wife named Xiang Yu, who gave birth to a pair of daughters. Originally, the days were peaceful and quiet. However, when Yun Yeho got into an accident, there were some subtle changes to his life. His wife did not usually go out to work. Instead, she took care of a few acres of land at home. Usually, she would work in the fields, while her husband would work outside and send money home. Later, when he was working, he was seriously injured and became paralyzed. The pillar of support for the family collapsed, cutting off half of their source of income. As a result, the burden of living fell on his wife. At first, she did not complain. She would go out to farm in the day and come back at night to take care of Yun Yeho and his mother-in-law. However, not long after, Xiang Yu became unhappy. She had to go out to work in the day and come back at night to take care of her seriously ill mother-in-law and the bedridden Yun Yeho. Gradually, her complaints increased. She was somewhat dissatisfied with Yun Yecheng and Yun Yeho. When Yun Yecheng's family was prosperous, he did not do anything to his mother and only sent some money home. However, when they were down and out, Yun Yeho secretly sent money to his father behind her back. Now that Yun Yeho was bedridden, not only did he not inform Yun Yecheng, but the latter also did not come back to visit him. Therefore, she once suggested that they get back the tens of thousands of yuan they had given to Yun Yecheng to ease their hard times. Yun Yeho was unwilling to do so. He said that it was not easy for Yun Yecheng either. Everything in the city had to be spent, and life was tough. The couple quarreled. From then on, they did not put in as much effort in taking care of Yun Yeho and his mother-in-law and appeared to be very perfunctory. This time, when Yun Yecheng went back to attend his mother's funeral, he learned of this matter and proposed to bring Yun Yeho to the city. When Xiang Yu heard of this, she also wanted to follow them to the city. Yun Yecheng could not reject her because of his pride, but Yun Yeho was angry when he heard this. He was afraid that dragging his family would burden his father, so he refused to go to the city. Chapter 1325. Yun Yeho was infuriated. Her father hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Don't bother. Your whole family will follow me to the city. I still have some connections, so I can arrange jobs for your two daughters. With that, Xiang Yu was satisfied. This was also the reason why Yun Yecheng repeatedly said that he could not burden Yun Shishir. With Li Qin in front of him, he had suffered enough. Naturally, he could not let Yun Shishir have another burden. Who knew if she was the second Li Qin? Yun Yecheng did not dare to let Yun Shishir carry another burden. Yun Shishir smiled at his words and said, Dad, you've taught me before that a harmonious family will prosper. Still, since you're worried that I'll be dragged down, I'll respect your opinion. Still, when Uncle comes to the city, even if he doesn't stay with me, I'll at least be in charge of their accommodation. This is also a token of my sincerity. Yun Shishir's words were very pleasing to his ears. With tears in his eyes, he lamented, Shishir, the best choice I've ever made in my life is to meet you. Although you're not my biological daughter, I've always treated you as my own in my heart. I know that you're filial and know how to be grateful. At the same time, I hope that you can lead a better life. Your happiness is Dad's greatest wish. Yun Shishir smiled and comforted him a little more before hanging up the phone. Afterward, she thought that since Yun Yecheng was bringing Yun Yeho to the city, he would need to consider some accessories. Thus, she decided to head out to purchase some items. The season had changed recently, so she wanted to buy some clothes for the two children and Muyaja. Thus, she left a note on the table and left. She hailed a nanny van. When they reached the city center, she put on a pair of sunglasses, a low cap, and a jacket before heading into the shopping center. As a public figure, she had quite a bit of popularity in the public eye. Thus, she had to put more thought into her outfit when she went out. It would be troublesome if the reporters recognized them and distorted the report. After Yun Shishir confirmed that she didn't recognize her, she went to the children's clothing section. Previously, she had taken Xiao Yichen's measurements. Xiao Yichen matured very early and very quickly. He grew taller and was a head taller than Yu Yu. For a child his age, the clothes he wore for a season would not fit him anymore. Therefore, Xiao Yichen changed his clothes very diligently. Xiao Yichen's skeleton was slightly bigger than Yu Yu's. Perhaps it was because he developed earlier than Yu Yu, but his body had already started to develop. He had broad shoulders, long legs, and a sturdy back. As such, Yun Shishir specially chose a few suits for Xiao Yichen. She carried a few clothes to the counter to pay for them. Then, she carefully selected a few elegant gentlemen's suits for Yu Yu. Yu Yu was especially suited for this style of clothes. The suits made the little guy look elegant, classy, and especially noble. When she brought a few pieces of clothing to the counter, the salesperson looked at her with a strange gaze. Just as Yun Shishir took out her wallet, the salesperson at the counter stared at her and asked tentatively, Are you that Yin Shechuan who acted in The Green Apple with Gu Xingze? Chapter 1326. I can't remember your name, but I know you. I've seen the movie you acted in online. You played the role of Yin Shechuan in it, right? Yin Shusher's lips twitched a few times before she said calmly, "Please help me settle the bill." "Thank you." Oh, okay." The shop assistant quickly packed up the clothes she had bought. However, she suddenly realized that the clothes Yin Shusher had brought over were children's clothing. She noticed that they were clothes for children around 7 or 8 years old. Why was she buying clothes at the children's clothing section? The shop assistant was suddenly stunned. The internet had advertised that Yin Shusher was as pure as a young girl and that she was single. She had never been married. Could it be that she had gotten married in secret and had a child? But these clothes were for children around 7 or 8 years old. If she were to convert, she would have had a child at the age of 18. However, according to the law, 18 years old was not the legal age for marriage. Could it be that she had a child out of wedlock? And it was an illegitimate child. The shop assistant cursed silently and was shocked by her own suspicions. This rumor was so explosive. Hence, when Yin Shusher carried the shopping bags in her hands, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a few shop assistants huddling together and secretly taking out their cell phones. The cameras seemed to be aimed at her. Secretly taking photos? Yin Shusher's heart sank. She immediately turned around and left in a hurry. Behind her, one of the shop assistants suddenly slapped her forehead and had an epiphany. "Ah! I remember now. Isn't she Yin Shusher? The one who was rumored to be in a scandal with Gu Xingze? Yin Shusher. I know her. She just debuted and she's already very popular." Yin Shusher walked briskly. The shop assistants behind her raised their cell phones and aimed the cameras at her. They were following her because of her fame. She reached out to stop them. "Stop taking photos, can you stop taking photos?" Yin Shusher panicked. In the past, she would have her assistant and bodyguard with her. At this time, the bodyguard would appear and stop these people. But now, she was alone. Other than hiding and begging pitifully, there was nothing else she could do. She didn't expect that after dressing up like this and wrapping herself up like a dumpling, she would still be recognized. It could only be said that The Green Apple was too popular. The meticulously edited trailer with exquisite scenes and a warm melody. Once those sensational and beautiful scenes were released on the internet, it immediately caused a strong reaction among the young people. The memories of my youth, the warmth in my memories. Gu Xingze and Yin Shusher's acting as the winter and summer couple couldn't be any more perfect. Even though Gu Xingze and Yin Shusher are in their 20s, their acting is as authentic as a 16-year-old's. The Green Apple, Yin Shusher's The Green Apple, but after seeing the trailer, it's beyond everyone's expectations. It seems to be a good feeling. In addition to the official Weibo's promotion and the hype of various famous marketing accounts, Gu Xingze also revealed the highlights of the filming from time to time. Hence, the topic of The Green Apple was constantly trending on the internet. Hence, almost all the young people who frequently surfed the internet knew about Yin Shusher. Yin Shusher walked all the way, but the shop assistants were still chasing after her with their cell phones. They madly took photos, recorded videos of her. She was a celebrity. And a big celebrity. Chapter 1327. Actually, given Yin Shusher's current status, it could only be said that she had just become famous. Other than acting in a movie, shooting a few print advertisements, and taking on a MV for an idol drama's original soundtrack, she was widely known by the public due to her high exposure. However, in terms of status, she could not be compared to Han Yuyan and Yang Mi. The reason why she was considered a big star was because Lin Fengtian's personal charisma was too strong. In addition, he had worked with Gu Xingze before. Moreover, the two of them had been involved in scandals outside of filming. In the eyes of the public, Gu Xingze had always been an excellent idol who was insulated from scandals. He rarely had any scandals with female celebrities. Other than some groundless accusations by the media and the female celebrities who had worked with him deliberately buying marketing accounts to create scandals, Gu Xingze could be said to have no scandals at all. Therefore, when Gu Xingze's team did not particularly resist the scandals between him and Yun Shishir, in the eyes of the public, Yun Shishir had almost become the Heavenly King's sister-in-law candidate. A female celebrity who had worked with Gu Xingze before. She had been very popular recently. Moreover, everyone had their vanity. If they could post a photo with a celebrity on their WeChat moments, wouldn't they be in the limelight? Yun Shishir, can you take a photo with me? Yun Shishir, are you really together with Gu Xingze? That's impossible, right? They can't be together. I've seen the trailer of The Green Apple. Actually, when the two of them stand together, they look very compatible. If she is together with Gu Xingze, I definitely won't be disgusted. Yun Shishir, can you take a photo with us? The voices behind her were still chasing her relentlessly. Yun Shishir turned around and glanced. She did not know when, but the number of employees behind her had increased from 2 to 3. Many of them were passers-by who were shopping in the mall. However, when they heard a loud voice, they knew that a big star had arrived. When they heard that it was Yun Shishir, who had been involved in a scandal with Gu Xingze not long ago, they all chased after her out of admiration. It was a rare opportunity to be in close contact with idols and celebrities. In addition, many people were curious about the relationship between Yun Shishir and Gu Xingze. They wanted to find out more about it. Unknowingly, the number of people following her increased. Yun Shishir was like a headless fly bumping about in the huge shopping mall. She rarely came to shopping malls. After becoming a public figure, she had fewer opportunities to shop and could only shop online. However, when she shopped online, the things she bought were always not to her liking. That was why she had the idea of shopping today. The mall was so big, and there were so many twists and turns. She was not careful and walked into a dead end. Yun Shishir sucked in a breath of cold air. When she turned around, she found that the road was completely blocked. What should he do? Yun Shishir stood helplessly on the spot. She was so nervous that she broke out in cold sweat. She didn't know what to do. She immediately called Mu Shi and informed her of her current location in a hushed voice, asking her to hurry over to put out the fire. Mu Shi said that she would be there in 10 minutes. However, distant water could not put out a nearby fire. What should she do now? Yun Shishir was at a loss for a moment. Yun Shishir, I'm your little fan. Can I take a photo with you? A passerby asked excitedly. Yun Shishir licked her dry lips. Inside, she cursed, fan? How can you be a fan? Chapter 13:28. Her movie had yet to be released, her print ads had yet to be released on a large scale, and her music video had yet to be released. At most, it would be hyped up on the internet. Where did her fans come from? At most, they were fans of her looks. However, Yun Shishir was self-aware. She knew very well that she was not a big shot to the extent that she would have fans no matter where she went on the streets. She could be considered a fan. Usually, when a fan made such a request, as a celebrity, she would ignore it. Unless there were complete protection measures and bodyguards at the scene, only then would she be able to satisfy the fan's request appropriately. Even so, she could not get too close to the fan. This was what Qin Zhou had warned her. Because the entire team was planning a publicity stunt for her, they planned to tie her and Gu Xingze together to increase her popularity. After all, in the entertainment industry, where the new and the old were replaced with each passing day, only the newcomers would be happy, but not the old ones. If there were no topics to talk about, they would be outdated very quickly. Yun Shishir was currently in a slack period. She was a newcomer who had just debuted and did not have a lot of work yet. Other than some entertainment programs, she had not released any other works yet. Hence, the team hoped that during this period of slack, they could stabilize her popularity. Hence, they tied her and Gu Xingze together for publicity purposes. With Gu Xingze's high popularity and Yun Shishir's natural ability to be on the hot search list, there was naturally no need to worry about the topic when the two of them were tied together. As far as management companies were concerned, artists were more like commodities to them. If they wanted this product to gain more market share, they would rack their brains to plan, package, and promote the product. Now that Huan Yu was promoting Yun Shishir, it was more the intention of the entertainment director, Ji Lin. Ji Lin was very optimistic about Yun Shishir's future, so he did not hesitate to spend a lot of money to package her. However, what was disadvantageous for her was that tying her to Gu Xingze for publicity purposes would definitely attract extreme protests and dissatisfaction from some of Gu Xingze's fans. Long before this, Yun Shishir had already received razor blades sent to the company by Gu Xingze's diehard fans. It wasn't just once. It was a very frequent occurrence. When Mu Shi opened the letters sent by fans, 80% of them were clamoring for Yun Shishir to get out of showbiz. However, the unfavorable situation for her was far more than that. Some fans even sent private messages to insult Yun Shishir, saying that she was a scheming B*TCH and a white lotus who would resort to any means to create hype in order to climb up the social ladder. She was so shameless that she even used Gu Xingze to create hype. This was something that Gu Xingze's fans could not tolerate. There were even netizens slandering her, saying that Yun Shishir must have a very scary background. She must have a sugar daddy behind her, and perhaps even more than one. The financier behind her must be very powerful, so much so that the high-quality idol, who had always been untainted and insulated from scandals, was actually willingly tied up with her for hype. In the eyes of these fans, there was no way that Gu Xingze was willing. He was so arrogant and aloof, so how could he lower himself and cooperate with a newcomer to create hype? It must be that Yun Shishir's backer was too powerful, so she maliciously oppressed, exploited, and made use of him. These voices with ulterior motives spread like wildfire online. Hence, Qin Zhou repeatedly warned Yun Shishir not to go out alone. If she met Gu Xingze's extreme fans, he was afraid that she would be hurt. Chapter 1329. In the past, there was also a new starlet who had just debuted. She was pretty and had collaborated with Gu Xingze in an idol drama. She acted as a scheming second female lead. Just like Yun Shishir's team, this starlet's team wanted to use Gu Xingze's popularity to create hype. Gu Xingze's team naturally wouldn't allow Gu Xingze's popularity to be used by them. Hence, they bought their own marketing accounts and started to create hype with some verified accounts on Weibo. They spread some groundless gossip on the set on the internet to create an ambiguous feeling between the two of them. The starlet would also post some ambiguous content on Weibo from time to time to make people's imaginations run wild. However, her team took a wrong step. The idol drama that Xiaohua acted in did not have a good character setting. Not only was she the second female lead, but in the drama, this character was sinister and vicious. She was very shrewd and always made things difficult for the male lead and female lead. It was very unflattering. Moreover, the audience liked the couple very much. Hence, the impression of the characters in the drama was brought to reality. They were especially disgusted and resistant to the starlet. In addition, she used Gu Xingze's popularity to create hype. This caused Gu Xingze's team to be unhappy. Gu Xingze's studio quickly released an announcement to clarify the scandal. They also accused the starlet of not having professional ethics and creating hype for herself. This caused a huge impact on Gu Xingze's acting career. As a result, the public was even more disgusted with the starlet. At a press conference, an extreme fan entered the venue and shook hands with a celebrity at close range. The fan took out a bottle of sulfuric acid and splashed it directly on her face. She cursed angrily, "Shameless B*TCH, go to hell." Then, she took out a small knife and stabbed her ruthlessly. She stabbed her a total of 15 times and her body was covered in blood. She was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Fortunately, the stab didn't hit any vital parts. However, the fatal part was the sulfuric acid that was splashed on her face. The starlet opened her mouth and screamed in fear. The sulfuric acid entered her mouth and burned her throat. Her face was disfigured. It was a horrible sight. After that, she left the entertainment industry and disappeared without a trace. However, this incident caused quite a stir in the entertainment industry at the time. Many celebrities who had taken advantage of Gu Xing's popularity felt insecure. From then on, very few female celebrities dared to be associated with Gu Xingze in a scandal. Because of this, you would never be able to tell who had good intentions and who had bad intentions from so many people. Therefore, Qin Zhou repeatedly warned her not to get too close to the fans. Yun Shishir hesitated, but still compromised and nodded. When the fans saw that Yun Shishir actually agreed to take a photo together, she was so excited that she rushed forward with her mobile phone to take a photo with her. As soon as she stepped forward, the others also rushed forward and surrounded Yun Shishir, constantly throwing out questions that were even sharper and more vicious than those of the media reporters. Yun Shishir, are you really together with Gu Xingze? Do you like Gu Xingze? I read the gossip reports that you and Gu Xingze are secretly dating. Is that true? If you are really together, why are you hiding it? You like Gu Xingze, but does Gu Xingze like you? Did you throw yourself at him when you were in a scandal with Gu Xingze? Someone in the crowd suddenly made a malicious guess. Chapter 1330. Everyone fell silent for a moment. Those sinister, suspicious, and curious gazes fell on her one after another, all of them carrying deep meanings. That person persisted and asked, if you really like Xingze, then so be it. But I think you obviously see that he is very popular and is a king. You just debuted and don't have any popularity, so you want to use Gu Xingze to create hype and bask in his light and popularity, right? Yun Shishir was stunned and at a loss for words. She didn't know how to respond to these unkind and malicious questions. It would only make things worse. Moreover, her team did seem to be planning to create hype. That was true. However, it wasn't her studio's intention to create a scandal with Gu Xingze. Gu Xingze's team also had this idea. After all, in the entertainment industry, newcomers were constantly debuting. Many of them relied on their unique looks. Although they didn't have many works, they gradually accumulated some popularity by participating in reality shows. Before this, Gu Xingze had never tried reality shows. In addition, in The Green Apple, Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir acted as the classic Dongxie couple, which was the nation's first love. Therefore, both studios reached an agreement. However, in the entertainment industry, there were so many things that were beyond one's control. There was clearly so much unkind public opinion being forced on her, but she couldn't deny it or explain it. On the contrary, public opinion was a better weapon for her to become famous. Yun Shishir bit her lower lip and avoided answering the question. In her silence, a female student who looked like a passerby was curious and muttered, "Is she Yun Shishir? Why can't I tell?" As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Shishir saw her rush forward and reach out to take off her cap and sunglasses. When her exquisite face was exposed in front of everyone, there was an uproar. Yun Shishir was secretly shocked and instinctively raised her arm to block it. Wow! It's really Yun Shishir in person. I think she looks better in person than on TV. I don't think so. I always felt that she was just passable. How should I put it? In the trailer of The Green Apple, the character she played was so pure and beautiful, but look at her in person. She even had a seductive aura about her. She looks like the reincarnation of a vixen. She's definitely a vixen. Otherwise, how could Xingze be so obsessed with her? The scandal has been hyped up for so long, but Xingze hasn't stepped forward to clarify it. Could it be that they're together? How is that possible? Why would Gu Xingze fall for her? He's not famous, and we don't even know if he has a clean background. Who knows? The crowd surrounded her and pointed at her, discussing animatedly. Yun Shishir's hands hung weakly by her side. She lowered her head and looked lonely. Young Master Gong, there seems to be some movement over there. When Gong Jia passed by a corner of the mall, his accompanying assistant whispered to him. He came to this shopping mall today because Leji Holdings' largest flagship store was in this mall. Hence, he was here to check on the company, which had been in poor health a few years ago, and to see how Yun Tianyu was doing now. However, when he passed by the children's clothing cabinet, Gong Jia followed the sound and saw a crowd not far away. Usually, at this time, he would not pay attention to such a disturbing scene. Chapter 1331. When his gaze finally landed on Yun Shusher's fair and delicate face, his originally cold gaze instantly turned fiery hot. It's her, the woman he saw on the poster in Yun Tianyo's office that day. How could it be her? Gong Jia could not help but walk closer to her. Compared to her image in the poster, she was thinner and taller. Her legs, in particular, were slender and shapely. Her eyes were enchanting and beautiful but, at the same time, contained a pure charm. Her brows were gentle and sweet. That face slowly overlapped with the bright and gentle smile in his memory. At that moment, Gong Jia could not help but hold his breath. Similar, too similar, Shusher. Gong Jia's eyes widened abruptly as he stared fixedly at her face. After repeatedly comparing her to the girl's voice and appearance in his memory, his eyes seemed to have confirmed his suspicions. Ecstasy surged in his eyes as he dashed toward her. On the other side, Yun Shusher was still surrounded by the crowd with no way out. She looked left and right and surveyed the crowd. However, wherever she looked, there were unfriendly, suspicious, and contemptuous looks. Perhaps, some of them had good intentions. However, some of them had undisguised malice on their faces. There were even some who were recording with their phones. God knew what she would say if it was maliciously intercepted and rearranged. She did not know how it would be distorted. Yun Shusher, say something. Answer us. Are you trying to ride on Gu Xing's popularity to get ahead? Are you using him to create a scandal? Are you trying to use the superstar scandal to get ahead? Yun Shusher, you are very good-looking and beautiful. You have good acting skills, too. Why must you use such means to become famous? That's right. Is there no cleaner idol in the entertainment industry? Can't you compete fairly with your capabilities? Why must you use such despicable means to climb up the ranks? Don't trample on Gu Xing's reputation, okay? Gu Xingza was able to get to where he was today and secure his position for so many years because of his own capabilities. His fame is earned through his own efforts. In my heart, he is a high-quality idol, so can you please leave him? Don't tarnish him. As soon as this person finished speaking, someone immediately chimed in. That's right, that's right. Leave Xingza. Please leave Xingza. If you must use such a despicable method to create hype, then please get out of the entertainment industry, okay? Everyone's voices buzzed in her ears like mosquitoes and flies. Yun Shusher lowered her head expressionlessly. She did not know when this farce would end. However, at this moment, a tall and slender figure suddenly rushed into the crowd. Gong Jia reached out and pushed the crowd aside. His actions were so urgent and domineering until he stood in front of Yun Shusher. Gong Jia's fingers trembled as he held her face. His nervous gaze fell on her face as he carefully sized her up. Then, he suddenly hugged her tightly in his arms. Shusher. You're still alive. His voice was deep and hoarse. He hugged her so tightly that it was as if he wanted to merge her into his flesh and blood. Chapter 1332. Yun Shusher was stunned. Her mind, which was already in a mess, was disconnected from the sudden situation. She could not connect the dots. Before she could see clearly who had rushed into the crowd, she was held tightly in the arms of a man, unable to move. She thought it was a fan and struggled subconsciously. Let go of me. Shusher, who are you? She flew into a rage out of humiliation and pushed him away with all her might, only to realize, to her chagrin, that this man was simply too strong. No matter how hard she tried and how hard she struggled, the man in front of her remained in this position and did not budge an inch. What was going on? Everyone was shocked and could not come back to their senses. Earlier, when Gong Jia had rushed into the crowd, everyone had immediately noticed this man. It was not because of anything else, but because he was too outstanding. His tall and straight figure was a full shoulder taller than Yun Shusher. Yun Shusher was also considered tall and slender, but in front of him, she could only barely reach his chest. The man stood tall. His well-ironed white suit wrapped around his muscular body, as well as his long, straight legs. A black trench coat was draped over his shoulders, reaching down to his knees. He exuded a seductive beauty in uniform. Handsome without waves. It was weird to describe a man as seductive, but on this man, it did not feel out of place. He was too beautiful. His neat silver hair fell to his ears. His facial features were like those of an ancient sculpture. His features were well-defined, deep, and exquisite. He was noble and handsome. A pair of deep and mesmerizing eyes. His eyelashes were thick and curled, revealing a cynical and devilish aura. This devilish aura was insufferably arrogant, flamboyant, and unrestrained. He was like an overlord who dominated the world, extremely cold. However, at this moment, when he hugged Yun Shishir deeply, there was an indescribable tenderness in his eyes. As gentle as jade. The onlookers could not help but be shocked. Her first reaction was, could this be another reality show? Or, was this an idol drama? Hence, the crowd looked back nervously and excitedly to see if there was a hidden camera in a corner of the mall. They couldn't be blamed for suspecting that they were filming an idol drama. The woman in front of them was as beautiful as jade, and the man was elegant and handsome. When they stood together, they looked like an eye-catching painting. Is this a drama? I also feel like it's a drama. Maybe it's a reality show? Who is this man? How come I've never heard of such a young hunk in the entertainment industry? He's so handsome. He has a completely different style from the popular young hunks recently. He's so tall and handsome. I really like this one. What's this man's name? He's so handsome, even more than Gu Xingze. That's strange, I've never seen him before. With a face like this, it's hard not to be read. What's his name? Is he a celebrity who just debuted? I'm almost mesmerized by him. Oh my God, look at his hands. They're so long and beautiful. His eyelashes are also very thick. If he were to look at me, my heart would probably melt. Chapter 1333. Everyone was mesmerized by Gong Jie's cool beauty and couldn't extricate themselves. Many people took out their phones and recorded this scene. They uploaded it to Weibo and curiously asked the netizens about this man's name. However, at this moment, in Gong Jie's eyes, the vast world had lost its color. In his eyes, he could only see Yun Shishir. Everyone else was like air. They didn't exist. Shishir. Gong Jie gently whispered her name. He hugged her even tighter and refused to let go. He was afraid. He was afraid that if he accidentally let go, she would struggle out of his arms. All of this would be like those recurring nightmares that would shatter. He was even more afraid that if he let go again, he wouldn't know how long he would lose her again. He had searched for her for so long. Everyone told him that she was dead and no longer existed in this world. He should have given up, but he still held on to that little bit of stubbornness until now. However, fate allowed him to meet her again. He found her, so no matter what, he couldn't let go of her. 15 years ago, he had lost her once and they had been separated for 15 years. This time, he definitely couldn't let go. If he could, he really wanted to hug her like this. Time would stop at this moment and not move forward. He wanted this hug that he had lost for 15 years to last a little longer, just a little longer. Yun Shishir's heart skipped a beat when she heard him call her name. In an instant, her body became as stiff as a rock. She didn't know who the man in front of her was, but she didn't know why. But when he called her nickname, Shishir, he muttered, his voice was incomparably hoarse and deep. It was filled with the fragility and sadness of a foam board. At the same time, it was mixed with the joy and emotion of a reunion after a long separation. For a moment, she seemed to be infected by these emotions. She couldn't push him away. Subconsciously, she didn't reject his hug. Shishir, Shishir, in her memory, a boy who looked similar to her always stuck behind her and was inseparable from her. Shishir. Shishir. The boy's clear and tender voice was like a clear spring flowing in a mountain stream, tinkling and pleasing to the ear. The girl turned around and said seriously, Shao Jie, call me big sister. Understand? Don't call me that. I like to call your name, Sure. Isn't it nice? The girl sighed helplessly. The boy ran in front of her and gently held her face with his soft little hands. His pair of charming eyes slightly curved, and a bright smile bloomed on his face. Sure, let's stay together for the rest of our lives, okay? Shao Jia, call me big sister, the girl emphasized weakly. No. Call me big sister. Don't shout. The boy was unconvinced. We were born on the same day. You were only born a few hours earlier than me. Why should I call you sister? That's unfair. Even if I was born a second earlier than you, I'm still your sister. But you're so stupid and weak. Why don't you call me big brother? I'll protect you for the rest of my life. Shao Jia, if you continue to be like this, I'm going to ignore you. The girl was angry and made a move to leave. The boy hurriedly stopped her and held her hand. Don't, Sure. Play with me. I'm playing alone. It's so boring. His voice was soft and cute. He held her hand and twisted his body to act coquettishly. Chapter 1334. No matter how awkward the boy was, when he raised his head to look at the girl's face, which was pretending to be angry, he finally gave in. He lowered his eyes and glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Suddenly, he called out bashfully, Sis. His crisp voice was especially pleasant to the ears. So nice. The girl smiled in satisfaction and guided him patiently. Call me that again. The boy turned to look at her. When he saw the satisfied and bright smile on her face, a hint of shyness flashed across his well-defined eyes. He spoke again in a tender voice. Sis, let's play together, okay? Emichum. Sure, I've finally found you. Gong Jia muttered to himself as he hugged her even tighter. It was so tight that she felt like she was about to suffocate. When she heard his voice, she hesitated for a moment and was secretly puzzled. Why did she feel an inexplicable longing for his embrace? She clearly did not know him. Why did she feel a sense of closeness when they were strangers? She actually did not reject his hug at all. Being hugged so uncontrollably by him, she felt an inexplicable sense of loss and disappointment in her heart. She heard him call her, Sure, what a familiar tone. However, this situation was too sudden. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she did not know how to react. The people around them were even more confused. Sure, may I know if you're filming now? Who is this man? Can anyone explain to me? Gong Jia's assistant broke out in a cold sweat and immediately went up to maintain order. Coincidentally, Mushi had also rushed over with her men. However, when she saw Sure in the arms of a handsome stranger, she was stunned. Thinking that it was a die-hard fan, she immediately ordered the bodyguards to go up and pull the person away. Who was Gong Jia, though? The moment the bodyguard reached out to touch his shoulder, it was as if in the blink of an eye, and he was sent flying out of the crowd. Everyone was shocked again. They started to believe that this was filming. Otherwise, how could there be such a powerful scene in real life? While the Gong Jia was moving, Sure raised her head. However, when she saw the facial features of the man standing in front of her, she was shocked again. She widened her eyes in disbelief. Her reason and thoughts fiercely clashed, but no matter what, she didn't dare to believe it. The man standing in front of her had eyes that were very similar to hers. His handsome eyes were as deep as the starry sky. His handsome face, sharp facial features, high nose, and thin lips made him look like a sculpture carved by the gods. Every inch of his face was perfect. Sure was at a loss for words. Gong Jia lowered his head and looked into her eyes. On his usually cold face, there was a rare gentle smile. His smile had always been unruly, arrogant, and insufferably arrogant. However, it was only in front of her that he showed such tenderness that it made people unconsciously lose themselves in him. Many people in the crowd instantly turned into fangirls. He's so handsome when he smiles. I wonder what TV series he's in. If it's broadcasted, I'll definitely watch it till the end. Who is this man? What's his name? I've never heard of him. Can someone tell me? I'm definitely going to eat. Chapter 1335. The reporters, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, hid in a corner and secretly captured this scene. Mysterious man and showbiz's rising star Yun Shishir's love and hate entanglement. They're entangled in public. Yun Shishir appears in a shopping mall after becoming famous. Who is the mysterious man beside her? Breaking news. Yun Shishir's underground relationship surfaces. Mysterious boyfriend appears in a shopping mall with her. The reporters quickly came up with an eye-catching headline. Immediately after, they swarmed forward and chased after Yun Shishir and Gong Jie. Yun Shishir, may I know if you know this gentleman? You two look so intimate. What's your relationship with him? Yun Shishir, is he your boyfriend? How long have you two been dating? Yun Shishir, there are rumors that you and Gu Xingze have an ambiguous relationship. What's your relationship with this man? Could he be the rumored sugar daddy behind you? Yun Shishir's brain was still in a state of shock. Everything happened so suddenly that she was not prepared for it. Gong Jie's sudden appearance disrupted all her thoughts. That was because when she faced the reporters' cameras and flashing spotlights, she was still in a daze. Her eyes were empty and she forgot to answer for a moment. When Mu Shi saw this, she immediately led people to chase away those annoying reporters. Seriously. These paparazzi are as annoying as flies. No matter where he went, he was haunted. For a moment, the scene was chaotic. Gong Jie hugged Yun Shishir and held her shoulders with his big hands. He wanted to break through the crowd with her in his arms. However, a reckless reporter rushed in front of him and extended a microphone. May I ask? Before he could finish his question, a look of impatience flashed across Gong Jie's face as he coldly said, "Get lost." The reporter was enraged by his disgusting words. Just as he was about to stomp his feet, he heard the crowd exclaim in admiration. Wow! So cool. He's simply bursting with boyfriend power. He looks so good together with Yun Shishir. The reporter snorted and picked up his camera to take a picture of Yun Shishir and Gong Jie hugging each other. Unexpectedly, as soon as he raised his wrist, Gong Jie's men rushed forward and knocked the SLR camera in his hand to the ground. Hey! You are very rude. Why did you smash my camera? My camera is very expensive. Before the reporter could protest enough, he was picked up and thrown out of the crowd. Amidst the chaotic crowd, the poor camera was trampled countless times before it was finally on the verge of death. Soon, Gong Jie's men arrived and began to clear the area. Of course, with Gong Jie's neat character, his men were also very efficient. Not only did they confiscate the cameras of all the media reporters and erase the photos that were secretly taken, but even the cameras and mobile phones of the innocent onlookers were also checked. They only let them go after confirming that they had not taken any photos that they should not have. In just 5 minutes, everyone had been cleared out. The scene quieted down in an instant. Mu Shi stood at the side, dumbfounded. Gong Jie turned around. The moment he looked at Yun Shishir, his face regained its gentleness. Shishir, do you still recognize me? Xiao. Jie. The brother that she had been separated from for 15 years? Mu Jie. Chapter 1336. Yun Shishir widened her eyes in astonishment. Her mind was in a mess. However, in the blink of an eye, she quickly rejected this conclusion. Xiao Jie had long disappeared without a trace. She had searched for her brother all these years, but there was no trace of him. She had already taken him as a dead man. That car accident, her mother's death, and her brother's disappearance were like a nightmare in her heart. When she woke up in the hospital, her world had turned cold all of a sudden. The originally happy family of 3 was shattered overnight, leaving her all alone. She did not know how to believe that her mother and brother would be so heartless as to leave her behind. Cold and sorrowful dreams in the middle of the night were still painful memories that she could not get rid of. However, now, a man suddenly appeared in front of her. He looked similar to Mu Jia and called out to her gently. Yun Shishir furrowed her brows. Perhaps she was afraid of being disappointed, so she did not dare to have any hope. Yun Shishir stared at him in a daze. Do you know me? Are you Shishir? Shishir Mu. Who are you? Yun Shishir was so nervous that her heart skipped a beat, and her breathing became erratic. Can't you recognize me? I'm Shao Jia. Gong Jia was so nervous that he was suffocating. His fingers, which were holding her shoulders, could not help but tremble. His face was agitated and uneasy, and his pair of handsome eyes were filled with anxiety. Yun Shishir squinted her eyes and carefully studied his facial features. She seriously compared him to the handsome and adorable child in her memory. Her cautious gaze made him mistakenly think that she had lost all her memories of him. In a moment of desperation, he clasped her shoulders tightly. His eyes were burning with uneasiness and anxiety as if they were going to burn her skin. Sis. Do you really not remember me? There was a hint of disappointment and urgency in his tone. Gong Jia inched closer to her. His handsome features were reflected in her eyes as he tried to awaken her dormant memories. Sis, they all say that you're dead, but I don't believe it. I've been looking for you for so long, I can't wait to turn the whole world upside down. It wasn't easy to find you. Could it be that you really don't recognize me? I've searched the entire world for you. In order to find her, he had searched the entire world. Yun Shishir was secretly shocked, her eyes filled with astonishment. The memories that had been sealed in the bottom of her heart finally broke through the cage, and all the memories and images came back. Shao Jie? It's really you. She asked timidly, obviously unable to believe whether this was a dream or reality. Her eyes widened in disbelief as her chest heaved up and down. Gong Jie's face was filled with joy as he hugged her tightly. His usual arrogance and unruliness faded away. It was as if he had returned to 10 years ago, when he was still sticking to her from behind, obedient and docile. Sister, it's me. Little Jia, I'm little Jia. Sister, I found you. I finally found you. Gong Jie's eyes reddened. He had once given up and thought that he had really lost her. However, now that the person he had been longing for was standing in front of him, it was like a dream. That kind of joy of regaining what he had lost, forgive his lack of words, but right now, his feelings were indescribable. I miss you so much. I've been thinking about you all the time. Yun Shishir was in a trance for a long time. She felt as if there was a hole in her heart, and then a sour and warm current flowed into it. Chapter 1337. Where exactly did you go? I thought you were dead. Tears rolled down her cheeks and landed on his shoulders as soon as she finished speaking. Mu Jie's whereabouts were really unknown in that car accident. She thought that he was no longer alive. Now that he was standing before her, alive and well, she was shocked, overjoyed, surprised, and emotional. Gong Jie's heart ached at the sight of her teardrops. He cupped her face lovingly and gently wiped away the tears from her eyes with his fair, jade-like fingertips. His thin lips trembled slightly as he said, Sis, I'm sorry that I've finally found you after searching for so long. I made you wait for me for so long. His tone was tinged with guilt as he hugged her and murmured softly, Sis, I'm sorry. He thought that he had lost her, too. That dusty memory was brushed away. After 15 years of separation, the two snuggled up to each other and hugged each other tightly. They were deeply moved by each other's presence. Gong Jia said faintly, I miss you so much, sis, I miss you. Gong Jia's deep, hoarse voice rang beside her ear. It was as seductive as an orchid. She did not know what had happened. She walked up to Yun Shishir and sized up the man standing before her warily. She still remembered how this man had gotten rid of a well-trained bodyguard in an instant. It seemed that he was skilled in combat. However, when she saw Gong Jia's handsome face, which was extremely similar to Yun Shishir's, she was stunned. Shishir, he is, she asked hesitantly and tentatively. Gong Jia looked up and glanced at her coldly. His eyes were apathetic and cold. Who are you? As soon as he spoke, a few guards in black suits immediately surrounded him. Even through the pair of sunglasses, it was difficult to hide their sharp and cold eyes, staring at him like a tiger watching its prey. Mu Shi's shoulders shrank in fright as she retreated slightly. She was a little intimidated by this terrifying scene. She immediately looked at Yun Shishir for help. She is my assistant. Her name is Mu Shi. Yun Shishir immediately explained. Gong Jia's expression toward Mu Shi softened a little at her words, but it was still as cold as ice. Please give us some time, I have something to discuss with her. Is it convenient? He asked in a deep voice. Oh, of course, it's convenient. Mu Shi was at a loss under his cold gaze. She broke out in a cold sweat as she said, Sir, please go ahead. Gong Jia nodded and then turned to look at her. Sis, come with me. He gently held Yun Shishir's hand and left under the escort of his bodyguards. Mu Shi stared dumbfoundedly at their departing backs before she came to her senses. Did this man just call Yun Shishir sister? It was only at this thought that she realized that the two of them really looked alike. Shishir. Why hadn't he heard of it before? Now that it had appeared out of nowhere, he was really shocked. Although this man looks cold, he is really handsome. Gong Jia exuded a cold and aloof beauty. Wearing a white suit and a windbreaker, he was handsome and arrogant like a god. Just now, when his cold gaze swept over her, she was so nervous that her heart actually skipped a beat. The siblings' genes were just too perfect. The sister was beautiful, and the brother was as handsome as a cast. She even felt that if this Gong Jia were to enter the entertainment industry, he would definitely set off a storm. Chapter 1338. In the afternoon, the bright sun shone into the house. Yu Yu was woken up by a call from Li Hanlin. He opened his sleepy eyes and picked up the phone. Li Hanlin began to report the company's financial report for the new quarter. Xiao Yichen was still asleep, so Yu Yu got out of bed quietly and walked to the living room. He poured himself a glass of milk and drank it. He looked around and realized that Yun Shishir was no longer there. He walked to the table and saw the note Yun Shishir left behind. He glanced at it and realized that she had gone to the shopping mall to buy some things. Yu Yu sat at the table and listened to Li Hanlin's financial report while looking out of the window. However, on Li Hanlin's end, his voice suddenly paused and he said in a deep voice, Oh right, Director Yun, there's one more thing I need to report to you. His tone was serious and cautious. Yu Yu could not help but become serious when he heard it. Speak. I've already gotten the results of the report you asked me to verify. Li Hanlin said in a serious tone, The conclusion is that young Master Gong and your mother are related. This means that he might be your uncle. As soon as he finished speaking. Pfft. Yu Yu was obviously shocked. He spat out a mouthful of milk on the table. What did you say? Yu Yu was shocked and doubtful. Agent Li, are you sure there's no mistake in your report? I'm sure there's no mistake. I've checked it repeatedly and this is the result. Li Hanlin's tone was solemn and cautious. Obviously, he had come to this conclusion after repeated comparisons. Yu Yu's face darkened. Based on their relationship, could it be that his mother was Gong Jia's sister who had been separated from him for 15 years? Based on their seniority, Gong Jia was his uncle? Should he call Gong Jia uncle? As for Gong Jia's father, Gong Shaoying, the current leader of Hurricane Group and the ruler of half of the fire industry, was actually his grandfather in terms of seniority. Mommy is Gong Shaoying's daughter, the daughter of the Hurricane Group. Yu Yu's mind was thrown into disarray in the wind. How could there be such a melodramatic thing in this world? Yu Yu bit her pink lips with a conflicted expression. If that was the case, then Mommy and Gong Jia were siblings. She had heard Gong Jia mention that he had been looking for a long-lost relative. Then, the person he had been looking for a long time should be Mommy. However, he was a little conflicted. Was he really going to let Mommy and young Master Gong acknowledge each other? He didn't want his mommy to interact with the Gong family. There was no need to elaborate on the prominent status of the Hurricane Group. On the other hand, the Gong family, who controlled the Hurricane Group, was undoubtedly a powerful and influential family. The background of the Gong family was not something that the Mu family could compare to. No matter how small a figure in the Gong family was, they could completely stand on their own and do whatever they wanted. If an analogy had to be made, it could be said that. Chapter 1339. The Gongs, on the other hand, were closely related to the world structure. In this world, every war that started was closely related to them. In other words, the Gong family's power was obvious. The entire family system could not be explained in a few words. Moreover, the Gongs and Mews had a feud. Yu Yu still remembered how Gong Jia hated the Mews to the core. This would not do. He did not want the Gong family to acknowledge his mother. The thought of having to address Gong Jia as uncle made him feel extremely awkward. Then, he thought of how Gong Jia and Mu Yaja would stand face to face. As enemies, their eyes would turn bloodshot. According to seniority, one should address the other as brother-in-law and the other as brother-in-law. Then, he thought of how Gong Jia would grit his teeth when he saw Mu Yaja. That scene was quite scary no matter how he thought about it. Back then, the Mews were the ones who caused his grandmother's death. Although Mu Xing was not the direct culprit, he was still the one who indirectly caused Mu Qingqing's death. Gong Jia must hate him to the core. He must hate Mu Yaja, too. This feud between the Gongs and Mews would not be written off easily no matter what. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that Yu Yu did not want his mother to know his identity. If she knew that he was involved in smuggling, arms, and oil at such a young age, he wondered what kind of shocked expression Mommy would have on her face when the time came. Yu Yu had a headache and held his forehead. His temples were throbbing with a dull throbbing pain. Director Yun, what should we do about this matter? Should we report it to Master Gong? Keep it a secret for now. Yu Yu said in a low voice, let me think about how to handle this matter. Just as he said that, the door lock turned. Yu Yu turned around and saw that Mu Yaja was back. He immediately lowered his voice and instructed, I have something on, I'll hang up first. I'll contact you later. All right. After saying that, he hung up the phone and went up to greet him. His face was no longer gloomy as he raised a cute pink smile. Daddy, you're back. Mu Yaja stood at the door, exhausted. He lowered his head slightly and saw Yu Yu walking up to him obediently. She took the jacket from him and hung it on the hanger. He felt a sense of warmth in his heart. Yu Yu, Daddy will hug you. He reached out and pulled Yu Yu into his arms. The little boy was very light and much thinner than Xiao Yichen. Mu Yaja kissed his rosy cheeks and asked gently, where are Mommy and Big Brother? Big Brother is taking an afternoon nap. As for Mommy, she went shopping. She should be back soon, right? Yes. Daddy, are you thirsty? I'll pour you some tea. It's okay. Mu Yaja walked to the sofa and sat down with him in his arms. He held Yu Yu's little hand and squeezed his palm gently. His thin lips curved slightly. It's rare to see you so obedient in front of me. In the past, Yu Yu would only show such an obedient and cute side to Yun Shishir. Initially, he was cold and distant to him. Later on, he slowly accepted him. Now, he was open to him and was no longer so resistant. This little boy had accepted him. Yu Yu's little face blushed, but he snorted coldly and said arrogantly, don't be so smug. If it weren't for the fact that you're the man my mommy has chosen, I wouldn't be so gentle to you. Mu Yaja smiled dotingly and couldn't be bothered to expose him. Chapter 1340. He had experienced the little guy's awkward personality before. Mu Yaja's handsome eyes curved slightly. He gazed at the little guy's delicate face and kissed him. Whatever you say. Xiao Yichen woke up and got out of bed. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and walked to the door. When he saw that Mu Yaja had returned, he immediately went forward and threw himself into his arms. Daddy, you're back. Two pink glutinous rice balls, one on the left and one on the right, occupied his arms, like two lazy kittens, lying in his arms, incomparably intimate. With the two little guys in his arms, Muyaja's gloominess was instantly swept away. Yu Yu's phone suddenly rang. He glanced at it and saw that it was an international number. It was Hurricane Group's internal number. He recognized the code at a glance. It was Gong Jie's number. He immediately took the phone and walked to the side to answer the call. Young Master Gong. What's the matter? Yu, I have good news to announce. On the other end of the line, Gong Jie's usually cold and aloof voice was now tinged with joy and cheerfulness. Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively sensed that something was wrong. However, he still suppressed it and carefully probed, "What's the good news? Tell me." "I've found her," Gong Jia announced excitedly. He paused and added, "I've found the person I've been looking for." Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat. He was nervous and his tone became sharp. "Who?" "My sister, my biological sister." At the mention of Yun Shishir, Gong Jie's tone suddenly became warm and gentle. He was even extremely affectionate. "Her name is Yun Shishir." Hua. Yu Yu's mind went blank. He felt a sharp pain in his heart and muttered, "Yun Shishir? You found her?" "Yes." Gong Jia briefly explained to him how he met Yun Shishir in the mall. The more Yu listened, the more frightened he became. When he found out that Gong Jia and Yun Shishir were together, his heart skipped a beat. He was afraid that Gong Jia would accidentally reveal his identity to Yun Shishir. "Young Master Gong, where are you? I'll go find you." "I'm not free right now." Gong Jia continued, Yu, I'm with her now. I plan to bring her back to the Gong family." Yu was stunned again. Oh my god. This was too crazy. He hung up the phone abruptly and stood by the flower bed. After thinking about it, he felt more and more uneasy. Gong Jia said that he wanted to bring mommy back to the Gong family. No, he had to stop this as much as possible. He couldn't let mommy return to the Gong family. Suddenly, he dialed Li Hanlon's number. "Agent Li, I have something urgent to attend to. Come and pick me up." Li Hanlon sensed his anxious tone and didn't say much. He immediately said that he would arrive in 10 minutes and hung up the phone. Yu returned to his room and changed his clothes. He walked to the living room and told Muyaja that he had something to attend to. Muyaja saw that he was in a hurry and frowned. "Where are you going?" Yu pondered for a moment and explained, "Daddy, I have something very important to attend to." With that, Yu didn't have time to care about Muyaja and left without looking back. Chapter 1341. Gong Jia hung up the phone, bought a cup of milk tea, and got into the car. Sure, do you want a cup of milk tea?" Gong Jia passed the milk tea to her with a gentle smile. His eyes were as beautiful and charming as the stars in the night sky. Yun Shishir took the cup of milk tea from him and even forgot to thank him. Her face was still filled with shock. Everything that had happened in front of her was like a dream. She could not help but wonder if she was in a dream or reality. She was still a little confused, and her thoughts were in a mess. She had never thought that the person she had been thinking about for more than 10 years would actually be like a god, descending from the sky in front of her. Therefore, when Gong Jia sat in the car, she stared at his face unblinkingly. She was in a daze and could not blink for a long time. She was a little afraid. She was afraid that if she blinked, the living person sitting in front of her would disappear into thin air. It was too unbelievable. The scenes from more than 10 years ago still appeared clearly in front of her eyes. The memories that had been sealed away suddenly broke through the cage and flashed before her eyes. Mu Jia was her twin brother. She was the elder sister and he was the younger brother. From the time she could remember, other than Mu Qingqing's gentle smile, there was more of Mu Jia's mischievous and adorable face. Mu Jia was born more than 10 minutes after her. They were born one after the other. Moreover, Mu Jia grew up well and was taller than her by a few centimeters. Therefore, he was rarely willing to call her sister. Most of the time, the little guy would follow behind her and call her Shusher. Shusher, play with me. Shusher, I can't sleep. Can you tell me a story? Shusher, why are you crying again? Did someone bully you again? Tell me, who bullied you? I'll teach him a lesson for you. She corrected him over and over again. Whether it was threats or coaxing, the little fellow was not convinced. He even questioned, you were only born a few minutes earlier than me. Why should I call you sister? Even now, Yin Shusher could not help but want to laugh every time she recalled the young Mujie's awkward little face. But now, her younger brother had grown up. He had grown from a little bean who had followed her around to learn how to walk. Now, he was 1.9 meters tall, handsome, and had a domineering aura. His originally fair and tender facial features had become even more profound, exquisite, and handsome. That cute and tender little face in her memory had now become a young man, handsome brows and eyes, a well-defined outline, a high nose and thin lips, and a sharp sense of asceticism. His hair was dyed silver, and it fluttered in the wind, making his chin look as thin as a knife. Yin Shusher felt a little regretful. She felt that it was a pity that she could not be by his side and grow up with him. She had missed so many memories with him. Although she was vexed, she also felt that the heavens had been kind to her. At least, they would meet again in this lifetime. Seeing that she kept staring at him, Gong Jie smiled slightly and let go of his high and mighty posture. Just like when they were young, he sat obediently beside her and lowered his head to look at her. He was so much taller than her. Therefore, even though she was sitting, she had to raise her head to look at him. Gong Jie considerately bent down slightly and lowered his body, forcing himself to look at her shoulder level. Chapter 1342. She wanted to take a good look at him. Then, he would let her take a good look at him. Yin Shusher's heart warmed up. Gong Jie, who had grown up, was even gentler than when he was young. In his eyes, there was a doting smile that almost overflowed. His gentle gaze filled her entire heart. It was warm and cozy. Yin Shusher said desolately, Shao Jie. I'm sorry that I lost you for so long. It's my fault. When Gong Jie saw the desolate expression on her face, he felt as though his heart had been pierced and he felt extremely sorry for her. Sister, don't be sad. It's my fault. Yin Shusher pursed her lips and gently cupped his face. She looked at his face carefully and her gaze swept across every inch of his face. Suddenly, she smiled. Shao Jie, you've grown up. You're even more handsome than when you were young. Gong Jie smiled and grabbed her finger. He pressed it against his heart and said in a slightly annoyed tone, Sister, I've been very handsome since I was young. That's a well-known fact. Yin Shusher was amused by him. She could not help but use her index finger to gently tap the tip of his nose. You're still as shameless as when you were young. You haven't changed at all. This small action was something that Yin Shusher had done to him since they were young. Every time he was mischievous or did something wrong, he would hide behind her and need her to clean up the situation. She could not bear to blame him, so she would gently tap the tip of his nose and pretended to be angry. This was a little tacit understanding between the two of them. Gong Jie was a little greedy for the gentleness of her fingertips. He could not help but miss the innocent times when he was young. He said softly, Sister, tap me again. Yin Shusher tapped him again with her fingertips. Gong Jie could not help but hold her hand and gently kiss the back of her hand. Then, he greedily pressed his face against it. The back of her hand was a little cold. She had been like this since she was young. Her physique was not good. Throughout the year, there was almost no warmth on her hand, especially on the back of her hand, which was always cold. During winter, she liked to stuff her hand into his embrace to warm it up. Every time this happened, Gong Jie's mouth would always twitch from her cold little hands. However, he couldn't bear to chase her little hand away. Thus, Gong Jie resisted the cold and silently warmed her hands. He didn't seem to care about it, as if he wasn't afraid of the cold, but in fact, he was freezing. Sister, I'll take you back, okay? Gong Jia leaned against the back of her hand and said softly. Yin Shishir was stunned. Go back? Back to where? Back to our home. Gong Jia looked up, his handsome face filled with joy. If father knows that I've found you, he'll be very happy. He always thought that you were no longer in this world. Your appearance is a huge surprise to him. Father? Yin Shishir was even more confused. What father? Our father. Yin Shishir's face froze, and her eyes dimmed a little. Shao Jia, we only have a mother. We don't have a father. Have you forgotten? Ever since she could remember, she had never seen her father. She only had her mother and her younger brother. As for who her biological father was, that man had never appeared from the beginning to the end. She had not even seen his shadow. From her mother, she knew that her biological father was a very handsome man. However, in her heart, this man had heartlessly abandoned them. At least, that was what she thought. Chapter 1343. Gong Jia seemed to have seen through her thoughts and said, Sis, you've misunderstood. Father didn't abandon us. Don't mention that man. Yin Shishir gloomily said, he's not fit to be a father. I haven't even seen his shadow since I was young. Why should I acknowledge him? After a pause, she asked suspiciously, Shao Jia, where have you been for the past 10 years? Gong Jia was silent for a moment before he looked up and told her what happened 20 years ago. Back then, when Hurricane Group was first established, it was just a shipping conglomerate. Gong Shaoying, who was now an all-powerful military conglomerate, used to be the scion of a shipping family. His father was a famous shipping magnate, Gong Li. At that time, the Mu family's business was at its most glorious. At a banquet, Mu Qingqing and Gong Shaoying met by chance. At that time, Mu Qingqing was wearing a luxurious dress. She walked in leisurely, attracting Gong Shaoying's attention. At that time, Gong Shaoying was in his 20s. He was suave and extraordinarily handsome. Although he had seen many beauties, he was still deeply stunned by Mu Qingqing's splendid attire. He invited her to dance with him. Mu Qingqing gladly agreed. Sparks flew between the two at the ball. They fell in love, got to know each other, and promised each other. Mu Xing soon learned of this and immediately asked her to cut off her relationship with Gong Shaoying as soon as possible. In his eyes, the Gong family at that time could not be compared to the Mu family at all. Moreover, he was selfish toward her. He only hoped that she could stay by his side. How could he tolerate her being tainted by other men? Mu Qingqing was at the age of puberty. How could her love for Gong Shaoying be cut off so easily? Although she agreed on the surface, she still secretly met with Gong Shaoying behind Mu Xing's back. Gong Shaoying also wanted her. However, at that time, his father ordered him to go abroad to take over the maritime affairs of the Eurasian region. Gong Shaoying then asked Mu Qingqing to go abroad with him and leave the Mu family. They also agreed to leave the capital together. After much consideration, Mu Qingqing could not bring herself to harden her heart. Thus, she decided to confess this matter to Mu Xing, hoping that he would grant her wish. Unexpectedly, when Mu Xing learned of this matter, not only did he not agree to it, he even flew into a rage and ordered his men to put her under house arrest. At the appointed time, Mu Qingqing did not show up. Gong Shaoying left alone in dejection. Mu Qingqing missed the appointment and fell ill from lovesickness. In the end, she fell ill in bed. Later, she was found to be pregnant. When Mu Xing heard about this, he did not even need to think about who the father of the child in her stomach was. At the thought that she was pregnant out of wedlock, he became even more furious and ordered her to abort the child. Mu Qingqing refused. In order to protect her child, she locked herself in her room and refused to come out. Later, with the help of the Mu family servants, Mu Qingqing escaped from the Mu family and secretly gave birth to 2 children. They were a pair of boy-girl twins. Mu Qingqing then changed her name and took care of the 2 children. While avoiding the Mu family's pursuit, she secretly raised the 2 children. It was only after a car accident later that she was buried in a sea of fire. After that accident, Yun Shishir and Gong Jie survived. Chapter 1344. After Mu Qingqing left the Mu family, she got in touch with Gong Xiaoying. At first, Gong Xiaoying thought that the reason why Mu Qingqing didn't show up was because she didn't have any feelings for him. However, when he found out from her that she was under house arrest, including the fact that she was under house arrest by Mu Sheng, Gong Xiaoying flew into a rage and declared that he would seek revenge on the Mu family. At that time, the Gong group had gone through a few years of consolidation. Gong Li handed over the family's affairs to him, and under his management, its power grew continuously. It was now an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Mu family. In front of the Mu family, the Gong family had the confidence to be arrogant. However, Mu Qingqing cared about their relationship and asked Gong Xiaoying not to hurt the Mu family's foundation even if he wanted to take action. Gong Xiaoying, however, did not listen to her. In a fit of anger, he mobilized all his forces to deal a heavy blow to the Mu group. At that time, Mu Sheng's mind was not on the Mu group at all. He was focused on finding Mu Qingqing and had no time to care about the Mu group. Hence, under the Gong family's attack, the Mu group suffered a heavy blow. From then on, the Mu group's morale was low and could not recover from the setback. Gradually, rumors spread in the capital that the legendary Mu group was about to collapse. It was only later when Mu Yaja took office and turned the tide, bringing the Mu group back on track. Of course, this was all in the future. Gong Xiaoying was overjoyed when he learned from Mu Qingqing that she had given birth to a pair of children for him. He was overjoyed when he learned that they had a pair of children. He promised her that, after this storm, he would bring her and the children back to the Gong family and live happily together. Mu Qingqing's heart was filled with longing. Being able to live happily with the man she loved was the most beautiful dream in her heart. For this, she had been waiting for him silently without any complaints or regrets. However, at that time, Gong Xiaoying had already single-handedly established the Hurricane Group. For a long time, Gong Xiaoying was busy dealing with the Eurasian shipping matters. Hence, he could not be in two places at once and could only entrust Mu Qingqing and the children to a trusted aide in the country. That aide had some authority, too. With him covering for them, Mu Sheng could not find Mu Qingqing's hiding place for a while. On the day of the car accident, Mu Qingqing and Gong Xiaoying had agreed to meet at the port for him to bring her away. On that day, Gong Xiaoying had waited for her for so long, but she still didn't show up. In the end, he missed her again. Regretfully, this missed opportunity for a lifetime. The only thing he received was a piece of unfortunate news and a handsome boy brought back by his men from the hospital. That boy had temporarily lost a part of his memory in that car accident due to external injuries. He forgot his own name, forgot who his mother was, forgot who his relatives were. Mu had even forgotten who he was. When he opened his eyes, his mind was in a state of chaos. He was in a daze. Gong Xiaoying's men arrived and brought him back to the Gong family. When the man learned of Mu Qingqing's death, he was stunned for a long time. Other than grief, he felt even more lost and powerless. At that time, he already had a lot. However, the woman he wanted the most was always missed by a series of coincidences. He missed her again and again. Chapter 1345. He sank into deep regret and pain, unable to extricate himself from it. For a long time, he was unable to recover from his shock. When his men brought Gong Jie to him, Gong Xiaoying squatted down in front of the child and carefully examined him. The child's facial features were well defined. Although he was still young and childish, he could vaguely see his own reflection on his face. His eyes, in particular, were similar to Mu Qingqing's. According to his men, only one of the two children survived. His daughter, too, had unfortunately lost her life in the accident. His son, on the other hand, was the only survivor of the accident. Gong Xiaoying was so heartbroken that he was on the verge of paralysis. He spared no effort to investigate this matter. He initially thought that the accident was a natural disaster, but when the truth was revealed, he did not expect it to be a man-made disaster. It was said that Mu Qingqing was chased by the men sent by the Mu family on her way to the harbor. After more than an hour of desperate struggle, the car could not brake in time and careened off the cliff, crashing down. According to the investigation report, the brake malfunction was due to someone tampering with it. When Gong Xiaoying received this report, his hands trembled uncontrollably. He hated it. He hated it. He hated the cruel executioner of the Mu family to the bone. At the same time, he was filled with regret. Mu Sheng, that devil. If he had known this would happen, he would not have listened to Mu Qingqing's advice not to hurt the Mu family's foundation. Alas, what did her gentleness, kindness, and understanding get in return? In return, it was that devil's selfish possessiveness and overbearing lust. If it were not for that tyrant, his woman would not have been separated from him forever. Gong Xiaoying's hatred and disgust toward the Mu family were unreservedly instilled in Gong Jie's mind. Therefore, Gong Jie hated the Mu family to the core. It was also because of this that when Gong Jie mentioned the Mu family, the hatred that had been deeply imprinted in his heart since he was young would unscrupulously erupt. It was as if the hatred for the Mu family had already evolved into his nature. He only knew that if it weren't for the Mu family, his mother and sister wouldn't have died in the car accident. If it wasn't for the Mu family, perhaps her father and mother would have lived happily together for the rest of their lives. They wouldn't be separated forever like this. Therefore, the seed of revenge had been planted in his bones since he was very young. As time passed, it grew stronger and stronger. His hatred for the Mu family had already seeped into his bones and blood. It was inseparable. It was rumored that the head of the Gong family, Gong Xiaoying, had 4 children. It was said that Gong Xiaoying's first child had died at an early age due to a mishap. If not for that mishap, the child would have been 24 years old by now. Gong Jie, on the other hand, was ranked second, so everyone respectfully addressed him as second master. Although he was the second young master, Gong Jie's position in the Gong family was undoubtedly the oldest. As the eldest son and a core member of the Hurricane Group, Gong Jie's performance did not disappoint and was outstanding. When he debuted and took over the company's affairs, he was only 12 years old. In order to let him gain experience, Gong Xiaoying put the North American market under his name. Chapter 1346. In just 3 short years, Gong Jie had become an independent figure. Now, at the age of 24, he had become the leader of the Hurricane Group and the chief commander of the North American market. At the same time, he was also a core member of the Hurricane Group's Eye in the Sky plan. He held a prominent position. If there were any role in the Hurricane Group that you admired, it would be the crown prince of the Gong family, the person in charge of the North American market, Gong Jie. Sis, come back to the Gong family with me. If father knows that you're still alive, he'll be very happy. Yin Shishir was stunned. The Gong family. What kind of place is that? It's your home. No, Yin Shishir's smile faded a little. My home is here. Gong Jie was stunned. He felt as if his heart had been stabbed. Shao Jie, I really don't have any concept of our home or our father that you're talking about. I grew up in this city and settled down here. This is my home. Yin Shishir said calmly. As for the so-called Gong family and their so-called father that Gong Jie had mentioned, her heart did not waver at all. She had no intention of acknowledging him either. She still felt a little hatred and alienation toward Gong Xiaoying. Back then, if he hadn't been so meticulous and focused on his career, if he had been able to fulfill his responsibility as a man and protect his mother, her mother would not have died at such a young age. Mu Qingqing's death was indeed related to the Mu family. However, as a man who had been entrusted to his mother, how could he not protect her? Could it be that he did not have the ability to do so? Not necessarily. Those were just excuses. At the end of the day, it was because in his heart, his mother's position was not as important as his career. Therefore, Yin Shishir also felt a little resentment toward Gong Xiaoying. Moreover, so many years had passed. She really did not have any feelings for this nominal father of hers. If she really returned to the Gong family with Gong Jie, what would happen to Yu? What would happen to Xiao Yichen? Would the Gong family acknowledge these two children? Gong Xiaoying hated the Mu family so much that he hated them to the bone. How could she hope that Gong Xiaoying would acknowledge the two children? Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen had the blood of the Mu family. What about the blood of the tyrant that Gong Xiaoying hated to the core? Would he acknowledge them? Even if he was willing to acknowledge Yu Yu and? What about Mu Yaja? He would definitely not acknowledge him. She didn't want to follow in her mother's footsteps and repeat her mistakes. Gong Xiaoying, Yichen, sister, Gong Jie's heart throbbed painfully. It wasn't easy for me to find you. I don't want to lose you again. Can't we go home together? Yun Shishir was silent for a moment. Then, she said slowly, Shao Jia, I'm really happy to know that you're still alive. However, I really can't do it if you want me to go back to the Gong family with you. She paused for a moment. Her eyelashes trembled slightly. Then, a trace of loneliness appeared on her face. I really can't forgive that man. Why? Gong Jia persistently asked. Chapter 1347. Yun Shishir flared up all of a sudden. You don't remember, but I do. Mommy has been waiting for him for so many years, 10 years. In the end, what did I get in return? Shishir, Gong Jia was taken aback and a little stunned. Yun Shishir sneered again. He didn't take responsibility at all. How am I supposed to acknowledge him as father now? Okay. Sis, calm down. I won't force you to return to the Gong family. I won't force you. Gong Jia hurriedly comforted her. He, who was usually cold and aloof, showed a rare loss of control and panic on his face. He repeatedly consoled her. I won't force you to acknowledge your father, I won't. So, sis, don't be so agitated, okay? Okay. Anyway, I won't return to the Gong family. Yun Shishir reiterated her stand. Gong Jia was a little frustrated, but there was nothing he could do about it. Sis, let's have dinner together today. No. I have to go home. Yun Shishir thought of Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen. They should still be waiting for her at home. It was time for her to go home. Gong Jia was reluctant, but he could not bear to force Yun Shishir, so he did not ask her to stay for dinner. He gently asked, Where is your home? I'll send you back. Yun Shishir gave him an address, and Gong Jia instructed the chauffeur to send her home. On the way, Yun Tianyu called. The moment the call went through, Yu Yu's anxious voice could be heard from the other end. Mommy, where are you now? I'm on my way home. Yu Yu was startled and still had lingering fears. He thought that his mommy was about to be kidnapped back to the Gong family by Gong Jia, so he was rushing over to rescue her. Yu Yu sighed helplessly and ordered Li Hanlin to turn around and prepare to return home. Since mommy was going home, he was relieved. Moreover, from Yun Shishir's tone, he could not detect anything strange. It seemed that the Gong Jia had not revealed his identity for the time being. Mommy probably did not know about it yet. Yu Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Mommy, when are you coming home? He asked again obediently. About 10 minutes left. Yu Yu's tone immediately lightened up. All right, then I'll wait at home for mother's return. Yun Shishir hung up the phone. Gong Jia immediately asked with concern, Who called? Yun Shishir did not hide anything from Gong Jia. She smiled and said, My son. Gong Jia was stunned and couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. You have a son? Yes. In that case, Shao Jia, you're an uncle now. Gong Jia still could not come back to his senses for a long time. You're still so young. Why did you? Gong Jia was confused. He finally digested this fact. His thin lips twitched slightly and formed a complicated arc. I didn't expect that I already have a nephew. Yun Shishir's lips curled into a smile. Her mood brightened at the thought of the two lads. How old are you? He just had his birthday not long ago. He's 7 years old. 7 years old? Gong Jia was shocked again and his gaze froze. You gave birth at the age of 18? Because of this, Gong Jia's expression could not help but turn ugly. Chapter 1348. There was no doubt that she had given birth to a child before getting married. However, what Gong Jia was more concerned about was why she had given birth to a child before getting married. How could this be? A bad feeling arose in Gong Jia's heart. What exactly did a girl go through at the age of 18 to have a child before getting married? She was only 24. The child was already 7 years old. This was not the normal life trajectory of a woman, was it? This matter is a little complicated. I'll explain it to you slowly another time, okay? Yin Shishir did not know how to bring it up to him. In fact, no matter how many years had passed, Yin Shishir was still a little embarrassed to talk about this past. When she was 18 years old, she gave herself to someone to save the Yun family from bankruptcy. She took the unconventional path and signed a surrogacy contract with the Mu family. This was undoubtedly an act of selling her body. However, she did not regret it. In fact, she was even glad that it was because of this incident that she gave birth to Yu. This child was probably the happiest gift that the heavens had given her in her long life. Yu was the best gift that God had given her. She had always felt that this gift was extremely precious. However, she still felt that surrogacy was indeed a difficult thing to talk about. At least, in front of Gong Jia, she was still not mentally prepared to let him know about this matter. Therefore, she decided to keep it a secret for the time being. Gong Jia's expression froze, but he smiled and said, "Tomorrow, okay?" Tomorrow, let's set a time and place. Sis, we've been apart for so long. I really want to know how you've been for the past 10 years. Gong Jia looked at her expectantly. He had not been able to participate in her life for a full 15 years. He hoped that he could make up for this regret as soon as possible. Yin Shishir nodded. The car stopped at the entrance of Shangti Walk. Yin Shishir got out of the car and closed the door. She waved at him and said, "I'm home. You should go home early too." "Okay." "Shao Jia, where are you staying now?" Yin Shishir suddenly asked. Gong Jia smiled and said, "The Gong family has businesses all over the world. This time, I'm here to meet someone. Because my business has come to an end, I'll be staying in the country for a while." "Okay, then, see you tomorrow." Yin Shishir smiled and waved at him. She looked back 3 times with each step and entered the door. Gong Jia stared at her back in a daze until her figure disappeared into the horizon. Then, he reluctantly withdrew his gaze. However, when he turned his head, he caught a glimpse of a black wallet that had fallen on the seat. It seemed that she had left it on the seat in a hurry. Out of curiosity, he picked up the wallet. It was a wallet-style wallet. He flipped it open, and a photo came into view. Gong Jia couldn't help but notice the photo. His gaze was fixed on it. However, when he saw that it was a photo of Yin Shishir and a little munchkin, he was stunned. In the photo, Yin Shishir was standing at the school gate with a delicate-looking little kid in her arms. The little munchkin looked to be no more than 5 years old, but his eyes were delicate and adorable. His cheeks were rosy and tender as he nestled in Yin Shishir's arms with a sweet smile. Gong Jia recognized the child in the photo at once. Yun Tianyu. How could it be him? Gong Jia was once again thrown into disarray. What exactly was going on? Chapter 1349. Gong Jia suddenly recalled Yun Shishir's words. She said that she had a 7-year-old child. Be it in terms of looks or details, there was no doubt that Yun Tianyu and Yin Shishir were mother and son. In other words, the legendary genius who developed the Deva Ida project and proposed the super aerial control theory, who could break through the Pentagon's defense system with his eyes closed, was actually his nephew? Did you know about this? That day, when he pointed to the poster in Yu's office and questioned him, this child clearly knew about Yin Shishir's identity, yet he still pretended to be a fool and acted cute in front of him? He, on the other hand, was kept in the dark by this child for so long? Furious, Gong Jia picked up his phone and dialed his nephew's number. Just as Yun Tianyu picked up the call, Gong Jia's cold and gloomy voice sounded from the other end. Yun Tianyu. Don't you owe me an explanation? Yu, on the other hand, was baffled by such an abrupt question. It came out of nowhere, so he could not react in time. He asked in a daze, Second Master Gong, what do you mean by this? When Gong Jia heard this, he thought that Yu was still deliberately hiding things from him. Seeing that the child was still pretending to be a fool, Gong Jia almost lost his temper over the phone. However, at the thought that this child was, after all, his little nephew, he held himself back. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he calmly asked, My little nephew, how much longer do you want to hide this from your uncle? His tone was faint with a hint of displeasure. The moment Yun Tianyu heard this, he knew that the man had already figured out his identity and his relationship with Yun Shishir. Thus, he decided not to hide it any longer and smiled. Master Gong, you already know? Gong Jia snorted. Yu, let me remind you, according to seniority, you should call me uncle. Yun Tianyu burst into laughter. Second Master Gong, you're so adorable. Did you only realize it now? When I first saw you at the airport, I had my suspicions. It's just that I had too many things on hand at that time, so I didn't have time to prove it. Yu paused and suddenly frowned in disdain. You're so slow and stupid. I'm starting to wonder if you're my biological uncle. Gong Jia's face darkened at once. He gritted his teeth and said, How dare you tease me? I wouldn't dare. How would I dare to tease my uncle? Although Yu said that, she was just teasing him. Gong Jia was getting angrier and angrier. Yun Tianyu was obviously teasing him. He, on the other hand, had been in the industry for so many years and had always acted swiftly and decisively. Now, he was actually being teased by a 7-year-old child. Gong Jia felt indignant. Yu, how dare you make fun of me? You're dead meat. Don't. You've wronged me. Yu's pink lips pursed slightly as a look of grievance appeared on her tender face. I only had my suspicions before, and I only found out today that you're my uncle. I didn't mean to tease you. How did you find out? Gong Jia narrowed his eyes. He was very suspicious of how this lad came to this conclusion. Yu smiled and decided to come clean. Yesterday, I secretly plucked a strand of hair from your head. Gong Jia's face darkened when he heard that. Chapter 1350. Gong Jia, on the other hand, was secretly surprised because he did not feel anything at all. When did you do it? The boy replied slowly, When you stood up, I took advantage of the situation to pull it out. The corners of Gong Jia's eyes twitched fiercely. This kid was really clever. He had actually secretly pulled out a strand of hair from his head to do a DNA test. Only he could think of such a thing. Gong Jia snorted coldly. His displeased tone showed that he was slightly dissatisfied. Yu licked his pink lips and smiled. Young Master Gong, don't be angry. I was just trying to protect Mommy. What if the person you were looking for was not Mommy? Wouldn't it be a mistake then? I'm more cautious when doing things. If it wasn't foolproof, I wouldn't have done it. Then you've got your answer now. Gong Jia snorted, but a look of admiration flashed across his handsome face. Although he still felt that it was quite unpleasant to be teased by a 7-year-old child. However, when he thought about how Yu had done it to protect Yun Shishir, he was full of admiration. After all, if it were him, he would also be so cautious and confirm before making a decision. Yu muttered, Now I know. You're Mommy's younger brother. No wonder, from the first time I saw you, I felt that you and Mommy looked a lot alike. At that time, I started to have my suspicions. When he said this, Yun Shishir's gentle smile suddenly appeared in Gong Jia's eyes. His eyes were as gentle as water in an instant. Yes. Your Mommy and I have looked very alike since we were young. People who saw us were very surprised. They said that we looked like we were made from the same mold. Twins of different sexes were the union of different eggs. Generally speaking, it was very rare for twins of different sexes to look so alike. However, for some reason, Yun Shishir and Gong Jia looked like they were made from the same mold since they were born. When they were young, Mu Qingqing thought it was fun, so she cut Yun Shishir's hair short and put on a little suit. She also let Gong Jia's hair grow long and put on a little skirt. When they stood together, they did not look out of place at all. Both of them had a pair of eyes that could captivate all living things. Their eyes were like silk. Gong Jia's eyes were very long. Coupled with his deep eyes and thick and long eyelashes, at first glance, it looked like he had put on very deep eyeliner. Yu Yu found it interesting as well. Gong Jia and Yun Shishir stood side by side, and one could tell at a glance that they were siblings. Gong Jia said coldly, "Since you know my identity, shouldn't you change the way you address me?" Yu Yu's eyebrows raised. "There's no hurry to change the way I address you." He had a feeling that he was at a disadvantage when he changed from young Master Gong to uncle. He was a little unhappy. Gong Jia smiled evilly and said playfully, "Little nephew, if I'm not wrong, your mommy doesn't know about your relationship with the Hurricane Group, right?" Yu Yu was stunned. "So, she doesn't know about your identity? Has she been kept in the dark about what you've done in Hurricane Group in the past 2 years, as well as the waves you've stirred up?" Gong Jia's voice deepened as his tone deepened with a hint of meaning. Yu Yu was speechless. He did not even need to think about what Gong Jia was trying to say. Yu Yu was speechless as he looked into the distance. This Gong Jia was more two-faced than he thought. Chapter 1351. Gong Jia did not know what he was thinking, though, so he decided to provoke him further. Actually, I'm curious, too. What would your mommy think if she were to find out that you're playing with arms, smuggling, oil, and hacking at such a young age instead of studying properly? She'll definitely teach you a lesson. Uncle. On the other end of the line, Yu Yu said through gritted teeth. Gong Jia was satisfied. Good boy, little nephew. But I'm curious too. Yu Yu's eyes were smiling. Take a guess. If mommy finds out that her precious son is playing with these things at such a young age and that it was his uncle who taught him, what will she think? Gong Jia's face darkened instantly. Mimicking his earlier threatening tone, Yu Yu casually enunciated each word. Uncle, if mommy finds out that you've brought me into the oil business, smuggling business, and even instigated me to play with firearms, she'll definitely explode in anger. It's scary just thinking about it when mommy gets angry. Gong Jia immediately softened and lost all of his earlier arrogance. Yu Yu, let's talk things over. Don't threaten people so easily. Yu Yu was satisfied. This round was a draw. No one was at a disadvantage. When it came to eloquence, he had never lost to anyone. Gong Jia held the phone and had a lot of questions to ask. He had been separated from Yun Shishir for 15 years. 15 years was not a long time, but it had taken up 3/4 of his life. After being separated for such a long time, he had a lot of things to say and a lot of questions to ask. However, when the words reached his throat, they were stuck. For a moment, he could not think of anything to ask. Or perhaps, there were too many things he wanted to ask. For a moment, he did not know where to start. He wanted to know if she had been living well for the past 15 years. Had she been wronged in any way? Had she been bullied? 15 years ago, after they were separated, where did she go? Was she adopted? What exactly happened to her when she was 18 that caused her to have a child at such a young age? When Gong Jia thought of this, his heart ached. 18 years old was still so young. In this country, girls of this age should still be studying. He did some calculations. At that time, she should still be in university and hadn't graduated yet. She had a child when she was still in school. What exactly happened? Could it be, was she bullied by other boys? This was the only hypothesis that Gong Jia could think of. At the age of 18, she was young and ignorant. She was inexperienced. Girls were easily deceived by boys. She foolishly trusted him with her heart, only to be toyed with. Or was it because she was violated? Thinking of this suspicion, Gong Jie's heart suddenly surged with rage. If he were to find out what had happened 7 years ago, if he were to find out who the man who had bullied her was, he would dismember that man into 1,000 pieces and throw him into the sea to feed the fish. In the restaurant, Mu Yaja elegantly sneezed, and then his face was filled with suspicion. Was someone talking bad about him? Yu Yu sensed that Gong Jie's breathing suddenly became heavy. Not knowing what he was thinking, he asked lightly, "Young Master Gong, what are you thinking about?" "What did you call me?" Gong Jie raised his eyebrows unhappily and reminded him. Only then did the boy realize what he had said. He muttered unwillingly, "I'm not used to the sudden change of address." "Uncle."